To order, and the first issue on the agenda is the 2023 budget presentation. So, Mr. Henry,
Hi,
I
Mayor.
think he's going to
Council,
talk to us
welcome.
all night.
We're going to be mainly working off these documents here. You'll see the headings. You'll have the FY22 budget. That's the budget we approved and did some slight amending to at the beginning of this year. Next to that, you'll see FY22 estimated. That's me going mid-year estimates on what I think our budget's going to be, or what our actual is going to be at the end of 2022. And then FY 2023 budget is Ty and I's proposed budget. So we'll mainly be working off FY 2023, but giving you trends off of FY 2022 estimated, so you have a better understanding of where I'm going at when I budget for 2023. Just a little side note, we've issued 38 new permits since the last time I've been here. We've had 145 move-in and move-outs, 54 new meter sets, and 867 calls in the last month since we've met. So just a little reminder of that the city's growing, and I think we'll see that theme throughout our budget, especially where I want to start in the revenue side of things. So what I usually do to keep everybody on the same page is I didn't put page numbers on any of my documents, so we can go by a packet number. So I'll say page 2, which is packet number page 2. It should see general fund revenues. And then it
doesn't show that. It's page 3. It's those general fund revenues on the packet.
Page 2 is our agenda.
Well, there you go. I'll just add one to every one. Huh? Page 3. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see line 1 through all the lines numbered. So to keep everybody on the same page, if you're discussing a line, you might say line 7 instead of the heading, because it's a little easier to find line 7 than the heading. So, okay, let's get started. Line 1, those are our property tax revenues. As I mentioned last workshop, we grew about 9%. So that's really just taking our annual or our assessed valuation, dividing by 1,000 and multiplying by the desired mill levy rate. That is the flat mill levy rate of 43.565. As you will also remember, these are estimates we get from the county. They can go up or down, usually just a little bit. Last year was a little different, but I think a majority of the time it goes up maybe a fraction of a mill up or down. The other big one to look at, and this set is line 9, Sedgwick County sales tax. The city receives a portion of the 1 cent sales tax in Sedgwick County. This one's been really unexpected hero of COVID. When the federal government's issuing a lot of stimulus checks, we tend to spend money and then also save it. So we're still seeing really good numbers on that. However, as everybody knows, I know the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates. We're trying to cool down the economy a little bit. How are we going to project out to 2023? What our revenues are going to be like? On that, I have a slight, it'll be a 3% increase from the FY22 budget number, but a slight decrease from what I'm seeing the trend setting in FY22. If there's some, as you know, we kind of tend to budget a little conservative and be surprised mid-year. So I expect I'll adjust that number this time next year. But for right now, this is what I'm comfortable in. All the doom and gloom that I'm reading. Who knows what's going to happen? I would rather be a little more cautious up front and then adjust mid-year next year. All the rest of the property taxes all the rest of the taxes that you see are usually Sedgwick County estimated, and they like to have you take their estimate. Motor vehicle tax, usually they outgrow their estimate, as you can see. Last year they had about $408,000. This is line 4, but I'm seeing about $450,000. So again, these are pretty conservative on the taxing side, but as we go down, you'll see where else I'm going. Lines 12 through 18 on the franchise fee total. A lot of these are weather and price variables on them. Electric and gas franchise fees, we get a certain percentage of revenue off those. So the more they sell, the more we essentially collect. Again, we had a big freeze last year on the gas, last year on the gas franchise fee, but because the price is high, we're seeing an increase in that line as well. That's line 15.
Back on line 4.
Sure.
All the actuals that we have are over 450, and the Sedgwick County estimate it looks like is 420. Any insight into why they're not recommending we budget like closer to that 450 number?
No insight on that. They just send you a letter saying this is what we estimated. I could probably increase it. It's one of those things where I'm not going to poke the bear too much, but I would fully suspect we're here again next year and it's going to be 450 or maybe a little higher. But
I was wondering if they were maybe planning to lower those motor vehicle taxes or something we might not be aware of.
Yeah.
I think that has to be done by the state.
That too.
Yeah.
On the fines and court costs and fines, there is a correlation between being fully staffed in the PD department and having more caseload. So we're seeing about 15% increase, but it's pretty likely to see that when we were half staff all through 2020 or halfway through 2021 and then fully staffed. So I expect that trend to go back to it was, and I don't have 2019 or 2018 present, but pretty close to those numbers. The real hero of our budget would be the permits and license, mainly line 31, building permits. We do charge a fee to build a house here, and that line is really reflective of all the numbers I've been telling you the last couple of workshops. Right now, we're 100%, 120% above where we were year to date in revenues on building permits. And I expect us to blow out that budget number, about $250,000 at the end of the year. And then I go back down to a little more conservative in 2023, because even though I know that I have a lot of faith in the Wichita housing market, because we're not seeing the type of trends that we saw in 08 and 09, where they were handing mortgages to unqualified borrowers. It's more of this housing stock is low. Ty and I talked to a lot of developers and real estate, and really that's what we're seeing is housing stock's low and the demand's high. So that's a good problem. Now, what the interest rates are going to do, that's another thing we need to look out for. But right now, I don't see the progress they have going. They're just going to stop mid-year. So this is where I estimate building permits being. You also know on line 35, I did slice out IRB origination fees, and this is kind of where we discussed maybe 2 or 3 months ago or a month ago. We don't budget for origination fees. We don't know what's going to come, but that's kind of what's propelling that estimated total when we get to the end of the budget. Hey, that's an extra $180,000 that we weren't expecting at the end of 2022. So that always helps. And then the other on line 34 administrative fees is pretty important for some of our discussions. So the city has a policy, developers come in, ask for special assessments. We do a lot of work. Staff does prepare the special assessment. There is a percentage fee that we get once we bond the special assessments. That's kind of where that money's or that line item or revenues will go. We will have a bond at the end of this year. We'll have a bond into next year, and then next year, as you can imagine, all these special assessment resolutions and votes that you guys vote on, they mean a lot. And that's kind of what we are going to use to help fund our city engineers. As you guys know, in mid 2021, we said she's way too busy. She can't keep up with 3 or 4 different jobs that we're used to. She has to focus on this. So that was my strategy a little bit, to move our city engineer under the administration side. We'll get to it. Freeing her up from water and sewer funds on the expense side. Recreation lines 43 through 48. Really, Brian's seen, Brian Hayes, our rec director, has kind of seen a renaissance. I think his numbers are back to pre-COVID levels. A lot of activity in the rec center this summer, as well as he added a day camp to make up for some other. YMCA used to rent out our facility and help us out, but they stopped doing that this year. So Brian said, "Oh, we can do it." So the first year went pretty well. There's a lot more into it than I think we envisioned, but now that we have it up and running, he wants to try it again next year because it's a lot easier. The barrier to entry is a lot easier for next year. So we conservatively said about $8,000, but who knows? I'm a parent of young kids, and we tend to talk to other parents of young kids. So I imagine if it'll be even more popular next year once it gets known. So now we can go to page 4, which is the remaining of the revenues. The pool. 2020 is kind of the busiest the pool has ever seen. So I can't really say we're going to outdo it unless we really jack up fees. We're probably going to stick around that $30,000 a year revenue for the pool, just based on the size. There's 2020, I think they maxed out several years. So if we want to increase any revenues in the pool, we'll have to look at some sort of fee increase. But right now, I'm pretty set with these numbers. On the grant side of things, the biggest grant we receive is an agreement that Chief Atterbury made with and Ty with US 259 for our SRO officer. They pay for half her salary and benefits. So that's a huge grant for the city that receives every year. That pays for half of one of our officers. Also, the Sedgwick County Department of Aging gives us a grant, $18,000 every year. Hasn't changed probably in a very long time. So very utilized by our seniors. If you talk to any of your county commissioners, you might mention, hey, we haven't increased that. And I think they have some money laying around, some ARPA money. So who knows what we can do, but that's a little bit of a side project. But that helps funds our fund. One of our rec coordinators is actually a half-time senior coordinator. So half of her salary gets transferred in to help fund that, as well as other expenses for the senior center. On it's called KDHE Waste Tire, line 11. Ty, we're probably going to put in for some park benches and stuff. KDHE's got a pretty good program out there that allows for, when you get new tires, they send it somewhere, and that somewhere is usually a shredding facility, and they'll do it for playgrounds, kids, all the rubber that is usually from old tires. So it's a recycling program, and they give grants to utilize those types of activities. We always apply for one. I know Dave will apply for another one, but I put 0 because we're not really sure how much that's going to be, and there's some matching, but that'll hopefully come in. The other, to round out our revenue, is really investment income. And then just miscellaneous here and there. We do have a Sprint tower, and then we still lease our old city hall. I believe 2036 is when that lease gets out, and then they own it. But it's still a nice $30,000 a year. All told on the budget, we're about $7.2 million. I'll stand for questions on any revenues that you guys see. Good.
One question.
Yep.
Page 4.
Yep.
Line 18, interest on investments. That line item doesn't include interest on land bank funds. Is that true?
Nope. And because we're on that, I don't expect us moving in 90 days on that money, but I did invest that into a 90-day, call it a CD. I put it in a municipal pool for 90 days. We'll collect 1.87%. That's the best I could do with 90 days. But we might also have a discussion on when we might want to move on that. I didn't want it sitting in just a standard overnight account getting 1%. So I figured we wouldn't act by 90 days. So, but if you guys really want to hold on to it for 6 months, we can get a better interest rate. So we might be in communication with that money about once or twice every other month on what we want to do. So, or when it's coming up to that 90 days, so I can do it some more. But yeah, that's interest rates really rebounded. We collecting next to nothing all through COVID, as you guys know in your savings account. But like I said before, cities aren't allowed to get ultra um, risky or risky at all. So I do my best to invest our idle funds and our reserves, but there's really not much I can do. So I wouldn't expect crazy returns.
Hey, Ted.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're conservative at almost every estimate that you made, other than the ones that you were given. Are there any that you're worried about at all? If you had to pick.
So in
riskiest?
sales tax, tell you the truth, I know I'm conservative in it. That's the one thing that with in my generation, I don't know that when student loans come back on, I think it's going to really affect our economies. That's a big, people don't usually look at that type of stimulus package, but it could be up to $500 a month for a family for the last 3 years. So once that comes back online, I just worry the sales tax maybe we'll see suffer. Other than that, I've been, like I said, I usually am pretty conservative, but the good part is I meet every January and we update our estimates, and I meet right now every June and July. So really the budget process never stops for me. And our philosophy for the last 5 years has been a big save and then spend, save and then spend. So we don't want to get ultra conservative. I understand that. But I also don't want to get us out above our skis, especially in possibly a recession era heading in. So
the other thing to keep in mind about that is he's built in a 30% reserve, and that's your buffer in case things do really drop. But I mean, it doesn't hurt your bond rating for that to go down, but you want to target 30% so that if things happen and revenues get hurt, we're okay. So we can still manage. Then we just have to make adjustments the next year. Okay.
before we head into expenditures in the general fund, let's have a little discussion. I believe it's page 35 of the packet. It's a KCM study on basically a lot of different cities. Ty and I are involved at listserv, and someone just threw out the question, hey, what's everybody doing with COLA and merits this year? As you know, hiring's been tough. There's a really strict market. So this has been kind of eye-opening for Ty and I. I know we went through quite a bit in 2021. We looked at our pay scale. We adjusted our pay scale. We gave the police officers, we corrected some ills that we couldn't keep a fully staffed police department, and a lot of it was due to our pay. We were really aggressive. And what happens when one city is really aggressive, the other ones are coming for us. So that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit throughout the area with the police officer salary. Now, with other salaries, we're starting to see public works getting in trouble a little bit with a lot of our public works employees are equipment operators. There's a lot of construction going on, so there's a lot of jobs out there. What I kind of wanted to touch on with this report is I didn't really catch on in 2021 what might be happening, but every city, every employer is really running the mile or a race. And what the city of Bel Aire, we kind of have a slower pace, a 2.5 merit increase a year for every employee, where other cities might have, like, say, Augusta, have a 3% merit plus a 2% COLA every year. That's a 5% increase for their employees. So they're jogging a little bit while we're kind of walking. Now, in 2021, we decided to sprint real quick and then went back to the 2.5% increase every year steps. So this just kind of shows what other cities are doing. I wanted to put it in your forefront. In Derby, they're 4% merit and a 2% COLA a year. I looked at Hayes. They're at mid-year. A lot of these cities, there's 3 or 4 of these cities that are doing mid-year COLAs, cost of living increases. I'm not here suggesting anything crazy. I did look at where we are with the 2.5% step increase. And then last year, what we did is put together a performance plan that, based on the evaluation, if you were deemed an exceptional employee, you were awarded a 2% bonus, which a bonus is nice. It's just a bonus. Pretty difficult for me to budget something like that. But we're doing okay. We kind of read the tea leaves a little bit of who's going to be exceptional, who's going to be lower. But I think with 2023 coming in the labor market, what Ty and I decided is maybe we do an up to 2-step increase for all employees. Now, what does that do? It adds about $51,000, $55,000 to our personnel line. It doesn't guarantee any employee a 2-step increase. What it does is says up to 2-step increase, which is a 5% total, and more in line with what we're seeing in the area and with other cities. That's what this draft budget has already baked into it. If we want to go back, what I did is I removed that incentive program. So that saved $35,000 right there is what I budgeted in 2021. And then added the up to 2 steps for each employee. And that's what I was thinking looking at this. Again, we're a draft budget. I just want to get the feel. I just worry that we're going to be behind come 2024 budgeting. And as we know from experience, it's not the best spot to be in. So we can have a discussion on this, or we can move on.
Can we come back to that land bank expenses?
I'm sorry.
Can we come back to it after the land bank?
Sure.
expenses?
Yeah. And again, I just wanted to be forefront with everybody before we hit the expenditures. You'll kind of see how everything's lays out in the summaries, but that was my reasoning.
With this budget, you've put in the 2.5%
Two,
merit.
2 steps, so 5%.
You put in 5%.
Uh-huh.
for
So we
this
can see
budget.
how it
Okay,
affects
all right.
the bottom line.
We'll make sure we're on the same page. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
want to be clear with that as well.
Bill took a ARPA bonus, took bonus money out of ARPA. Is that possible?
Yeah. Representative, Councilmember Welch wrote me an email about that. It is extremely difficult to report all the processes you have to go through to use ARPA money to give pay increases. You should see the county has a whole policy booklet, probably 5 pages long. So I chose to not do that sort of thing with ARPA money. It's a lot easier for reporting down the road. So,
I think that survey is really interesting. It's hard on percentages, because we don't know where everyone else started. We made some adjustments based on the salary study as well. And so reconciling all of that, I think, just based on this information is kind of difficult. It almost feels like, to really understand where we need to be, we need to look at kind of the individual departments and their market data. And so my first thought is, kind of that across the board 2-step increase for everyone. Maybe that makes sense because there is a lot of wage growth and a lot of inflation. I just worry that we might miss the mark in some areas and go too far in others if we don't have a little bit of a more intentional strategy with that.
You'll notice that some of those have Bel Aire as their baseline or their target line or something like that. So
Yeah, I saw Valley Center was comparing themselves to us, so.
Yeah.
they all are.
That's on the police side.
Yeah, that's on the flip side.
Now, and I will tell Justin makes a good comment. The reason that we feel confident doing this is that we just had that WSU did a wage survey in 2021
or 2020 or
So the adjustments you made put us mid-level in 2021 where everybody was at.
Mhm.
And since 2021, we did a step increase of 2.5% and then a bonus. And the thing that scares me about this information that you got is that if we don't follow this trend, we're going to immediately start falling behind. And the reason I say that is when someone does a COLA, cost of living, that moves their whole scale. So they've got, they're just like us. And I know you guys have concerns about the way cities do scales and pay and things. And I get that. The struggle of changing that is that's our competition. And everybody does it that way. And that's who we're competing with. But what happens is, so they give a 2% raise, their pay scale just moved 2%. And then they give them, so they've got a raise, and then they give them a step increase on top of that. So they're getting a 4.5% or whatever that is, but their pay scale moved. When we do a one step, we don't move, and no COLA, our pay scale doesn't move. So we're just moving down the steps. And then, as we all know, a bonus, again, is great. It gets us to that 4% increase for that year, but a bonus you don't build on. So that goes away. So now you're still at that one step that you got. And everybody that's doing this, they're moving their scale and they're moving their steps. And so that's what scares me when I look at this, is that I see us immediately falling behind if we don't make a change to try to keep up with our competitors. And that's who they are, is other cities and counties are our competitors, really. Now, Tyler, he can take some of our equipment operators, and he's probably going to pay a lot more. But, we always talk about our benefits. We've got good benefits. So then employees have to juggle, okay, I can go to work with Tyler. I may not get as good at benefits, but I may get a lot better pay. But that's what they have to juggle. So
I feel like I'm being picked on.
I was going to say, you might be offending Tyler here.
well, I just know what he pays his guys, and they make a lot more than our equipment operators. But anyway,
So-
and we can talk about it. But like I said, I get nervous when I see this and see what we do. We're going to be in the same boat in 3 years where everybody's underpaid.
So is the proposal to do a COLA to our scale or to do step increases?
No, the proposal is to do, because we adjusted our pay scale out of 2021. So everybody's we were getting some people at the end, at the end of their pay, because they weren't getting COLAs. We were just moving steps. So we adjusted. So most people now have some room to move down the pay scale. And again,
COLA you just get no matter what. Merit you have to earn with a review. So that was Ty and I's one. COLA is important, but we thought we should, if we're going from a pay for performance bonus to up to 2 step, you would have to have some sort of merit evaluation go forward. To put some numbers to it, because we kind of had that quasi performance bonus system, which costs $30,000. The extra step above what we normally do is about $55,000. So the net cost to the city would be about $20,000 for $25,000 for FY 2023. Just to put some numbers to what our thought process was all about.
Why do we want to eliminate that performance bonus system?
We don't see it as eliminated. We see it as instead of the bonus, it's the 2-step. So if you want a 2-step increase, it's based on performance. So there may be some people that only get a 1-step. I mean, we've got people now that aren't getting the full bonus.
So this year, the performance policy would change to be everyone gets a 1-step increase, and if you're exceptional, you get 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably change to the word exceptional is what I have kind of a hang up on, because it's kind of like calling French fries the best French fries I ever had, and then where you go it from there. So basically above standard would be where the 2-step would be, because we had I have a great employee, shows up every day, but exceptional rating is, to me, when I'm evaluating my employees, you should get a 5-star rating maybe twice in your career or 3 times. Because what happens if you revamp a program and you just get the same exceptional rating? So I would push for anything above standard to be the 2-step if we were to go this way.
So just to be clear, we're not changing the personnel policy tonight, are we? We're just
No,
trying to
no.
budget
Yes.
how
Right.
much, 5%
Yep.
into the
Yep.
pool?
So there was I just want to be clear on this bonus. Last year, we moved the bonus to being paid out at review if the managers determine that it's earned. You're not proposing to change that next year, are you? You're going to continue doing that program next year. Is that correct?
The bonus program.
So what's proposed in this draft budget is we would just be a up to 2% step increase. There would be no 2% bonus if you get an exceptional rating. It would be you get 2 steps or a 5% increase.
So the bonus program is not going to, you're proposing to not have this bonus program in 2023?
Yeah. So the metrics, yes, it's not funded in this budget. So it would be, it'd be gone or done away with unless you guys wanted to fund it as well.
So the performance from end of 21 to end of 22, the employees are halfway through their bonus cycle, right? We advertise this.
Everyone gets evaluated once a year, and that's what this. So it's not going to bleed into next year if that's what you're saying.
Well, so the current performance period would still pay out on the plan.
So
Through the
nobody
end of
gets
the year.
missed on the plan is what you're getting at.
Yeah, my concern is we've told people, hey, this is our program. You get your exceptional rating, you get a bonus. If we don't fund the bonus program for work that they've already, put in, performance that's already been provided to the city, are we going to be not appropriately funding that program?
Well, and here's so you could get a 2.5%. So say next January is my performance bonus or my performance rating. I would get my step 2.5%. If under this old thing, I could get up to 2% more. So I get a 4.5% increase with only 2 of that being a bonus, 2% of that being a bonus. But what we're moving to is up to 2%. So if Ty said, Ted, you really knocked it out of the park this year, I'm going to give you a 2-step increase, then that would be a 5% increase. So it's more.
So your question is, will everybody get a bonus this year and that's true. So, because the policy was effective January 1 of 2022, and it was for the year. So everybody will be evaluated this year. Some people are in January, some are in August. Everybody will get evaluated. And if they're satisfactory, they'll get a step increase. And then the metrics are, based on how much higher they go, they can get up to an additional 2% bonus. Everybody will get that this year, or have that opportunity this year.
Okay.
And then starting 2023, then this new piece would kick in where the bonus is gone, but there's still the performance. If you would approve this budget, the funding is there for a 2-step increase for every person. And then when they come to their evaluation, if they get a standard, then they would get a step increase. If they get an above standard, they would get a 2-step increase. So you're still doing the performance piece, but instead of a bonus, it's a step.
So I'm not really enthralled with that idea.
I'm not either.
I think you need to keep the bonus program. You have people who just started this month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're out because they won't have their annual review till next year. So
Yeah.
I'm just
That's true,
Yeah.
but then next year they would have the opportunity for a 2-step increase instead of the
I understand
bonus.
that.
Yeah.
I understand the logic. there.
Yeah.
I'm just not enthralled with getting rid of the bonus program. I think you need to. Last year we said we're going to stop the annual end of the year bonus, Christmas bonus,
Yep.
whatever you want to
Yep.
call it, and do this instead. I think we're moving that cheese too far now. Okay, and I think we need to not do that. I'm not a fan of that. Okay.
I'm also not a fan of an automatic step increase. I think we should be giving COLA increases instead of automatic step increases. That way, if they're not above exceptional, we keep them on and we keep paying them according to market, but they don't get a higher wage. And if they learn something, and I don't, if somebody goes out and does something really crazy, I wouldn't mind giving them multiple steps. If they're really worth it, we should bump them up. We shouldn't limit them to 1 step or 2 steps.
Yeah, and that's a policy decision.
We kind of talked about this before with the police, is that I think the problem was that other police departments do the step increases instead of COLA increases. Is that true or not,
It's a
Chief?
combination. Ted explained it. Some do COLAs along with their step increase, but it's usually a COLA across the board. Everybody gets the COLA because it's a citywide policy. And you know, the 2.5% is pretty standard. But some do 3, some do 4, some up to 5% on step increases. So what this is, what I'm understanding, is not to throw the bathwater out with the bonus program, but instead of giving just the bonus, giving the step increase so it means something. Because what it means is their standard of living increases every month because they got that step increase. A bonus is good for the moment.
Right.
But the step increase increases their quality of life and their satisfaction with the city, with their job, and their desire to stay, I think, longer with the city because their actual pay has increased, not just 2.5%, but maybe, if they're good, up to 5%.
Well, that's where the COLA would give them the increase and their quality of life would go up theoretically, or at least hold even. And then if they got a step increase, that would put them into a higher bracket. And so,
What I understand though is with a COLA for those organizations that do it, it's just a nightmare for the finance office trying to shift the pay ranges with the COLA. Would that be correct? Yeah.
gosh, I hope not. We got computers that do all this stuff in an instant.
Yeah, no, the reason I kind of, it's up to you guys. If you want to issue COLA, we can do it. Everything we've kind of talked about in the past has been, we need performance-based stuff. So we didn't want to come in here and just say, hey, across the board, 3% increase. So that's what I was tying it to, a little bit of merit. What you essentially do with a COLA is just raise the scale. Everybody raise the scale. If you want to go 2.5% or 3 or 4 or 5, and each step moves up. As far as if you say step, it's going to just keep bouncing down the line.
I
If we
think
don't
that
do COLA, we're essentially penalizing people because everybody's cost of living is going up.
Sure.
so, but the step increases would also bring their wages up as well. So I'm kind of thinking
Yeah, but it
that this
doesn't-
is the year to, this would be a year to not do a COLA, but to look at do the wage study, maybe a smaller scale wage study or something for next year to look at 2024 budget and see what's happened in that time. Because we did that in 2021 and we know we've had significantly higher inflation, but we don't know what that impact is to pay scales across the board. And I think we'd have a better understanding of that. And then maybe that's the time to look at doing that wage scale change.
Well, if we just do step increases though, that leaves our entry step lower and lower essentially every year. It's still the same amount of money, but it costs more to do things. So you can't do as much with the money you're getting. So if you leave step 1 at 18,000 for 5 years, we're screwed again. We got to bump this pay scales up.
Well, that's why I said, look at it next year. So get that study going sooner so that when we're at this point next year doing the 2024 budget, we'll have that better information to make that decision.
I don't think we can wait that long. I think we need to be doing something, even if it's not enough this year.
And I'm not sure that we're going to learn anything from the wage study because lots of folks are basing their numbers on the wage study that we just did. And so we're going to go study everybody around us and they're going to have just used all the data that we have. And I don't think we're going to learn anything. So I am concerned about changing the bonus policy, changing how our compensation philosophy too often, I think is not healthy. And so I don't think we should touch that program, but I do think that we need to address the base pay as well.
So maybe just so we don't get off track and stay here so late. I guess maybe the question tonight is basically there's a 5% increase built in here for wages. We can decide later on how you want to cut it, how you want to divide it up. But if you're if you're comfortable with a 5% wage increase to address it however you want but between now and the end of the year, then we can move on. But if you say that's too much, then you can take some money out of the salaries and spend it somewhere else.
I don't think that's anywhere too much, but I think it ought to go to the base instead of to the step.
Yeah. And
Well-
we can have that.
So I think we actually have not enough then, because if we're thinking about 5% for base and we're going to keep the bonus policy in place, we need to add back in that 30,000 for bonus.
So, and just from, and Chief could probably speak, I do 7 evaluations. If I have a 2-step buffer, it's a lot better to evaluate someone when you're sitting at a 2.5 and all their surrounding, have gotten 7% increases and a mid-year 3% increase. And I'm sitting there evaluating someone and saying, sorry, you didn't do exceptional. Here's your 2.5. It's a lot harder to objectively evaluate someone in that environment versus giving them a 5 and then +2. So yes, I would say if you want to keep the bonus program, we would want to add back that 30,000.
I didn't know we were talking about getting rid of the bonus program.
Good.
So I wasn't.
I
All right.
think that's what Ted shared with us was baked into our current budget draft, was that going away.
It is. And I'll show you the line. We can add it back and it's not going to be
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I still think exceptional employees should get a bonus.
good.
I do too.
We're all on the same page then.
All right, let's move forward.
All right.
We can come back to that and decide later.
Okay, so we're on page 5, administration. Line 1 is where I add city engineer's salary back into the budget or back into the general from the water and sewer. Health insurance, I've been talking to a few different, and we can keep going. Health insurance, where I've been talking to a few different people. We're a age-banded health insurance group, meaning I'm whatever my age is, whatever my age does nationwide is my rate. It's not like a large employer where that group is determined on your next time. So we've heard that with all these delays in knee surgeries and shoulder surgeries, it's going to hit either 2023 or hasn't already. But I've also heard that our group's not going to be as affected because it's nationwide. So 10% is usually the standard that I put. Hopefully it comes in under. Last year it was 1%, so that really helps with the 5-year average. So that's where I'm going in there. A while back we added line 11, accounting and auditing, into the administration fund. Utilities, again, about 3% estimate increase. I don't know with the way gas prices are going, but go ahead, Joe.
So line 7,
Yeah.
Is that a typo that we went from 600 to 6,000?
No, believe it or not. So city engineers are very highly rated. Their mod is crazy high because they're out climbing structures, I guess. So you'll see that, and even higher than police. Our building inspector and city engineer are the 2 really high ones for some reason. So
Higher risk.
that's not a typo. I wish it was.
We keep it so low before then.
So we added the city engineer into this pool.
Oh, I see.
And that's kind of why I do over under on the clear right kind of number wise, because a percentage wise would, if you saw that, it'd be 1,000% increase. Well, that doesn't tell the whole story. So that's kind of why I stick to dollar amounts on the right side.
Why?
Yep.
What's the thought with putting the city engineer in administration versus, like the planning and zoning area? I'm just trying to think
Sure.
through why administration, I guess, is the question.
Because it's the island of misfits. The planning and zoning just got a director, and it's kind of their budget or their proposed budget. So I like to separate. We have a director of planning and zoning, and his employees are in that budget. Whereas someone like our city attorney and city engineer and Ty, we're all administration. Those are the 3 things, and myself in the finance department. So it kind of, for me, logically, if I put Ann, our city engineer, in a planning and zoning budget, she would almost have to go to Jay, our new planning and zoning director, for if she needed any type of funding sources versus going to Ty. This is kind of Ty's budget, if you wouldn't say, and I share it.
So, and if you remember, Ty and staff has made a significant reorganization of what the responsibilities of city engineer are, because there was just way too much on her plate, and we needed to address that. So we have. So this kind of makes some sense to me that we would do this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too. I just wanted to talk about it.
Okay.
Really, it's pretty base budget. Other than that, if anybody has any questions, we can move
I got
on.
a comment that applies all the way through for you.
Sure.
I noticed nowhere in here have we increased the cost for postage. And I know,
Just went up.
it's gone up 4% this year. Plus, we're probably going to have to do a mailing next year for the, what's that stupid thing of the budget?
Neutral. All right.
Revenue neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of,
Are we coming in significantly below right now? It doesn't look like it.
I'll write a note to really look at postage with our second revised one. I think sometimes I look at the history and say, oh yeah, we're about right. Or like you'll see printing and publications goes up in a lot of these different departments. And maybe my mind is going postage and printing and publications, because we do a lot of legal notices, especially in planning and zoning certified letters. So I'll continue to watch that, but I'll update some of those numbers. We're not talking, hundreds of thousands. So I'll make sure those are in line. That's a good point. No other questions on administration? We can go to planning and zoning, page 6. This is where we added a director for building director, and then building inspector, admin assistant, as well as a code enforcement officer. It's always last year in 2022, we thought there would be a good idea to put code enforcement under PD. We found that code enforcement is probably best under planning and zoning. So I moved him and all those expenses back under planning and zoning. So you might see a little fluctuations. But that's kind of why that went up a little bit on the personnel side.
Is the admin assistant role new?
No, it's been a shared role between court and admin, but we had to go full-time admin in 2021 or late 2020, I think it was. And then the code enforcement officer, it was kind of the code enforcement officer went to PD, and he was trying to assist the court, and that didn't work. So it was just a kind of a hodgepodge there. The big thing on planning and zoning is line 10. iWorks is our software provider, and that's Jay's, our new planning and zoning director's main project right now to help with all these online permits. I know they are using it in the field, meaning when Keith goes out and inspects, he has a tablet and he updates the iWork program. So there's hundreds of thousands of lines of data we've put in there in the last year. So hopefully it continues to be a great program for us, but there's a lot of data entry that we're doing for that. But that's their probably biggest expense.
Is our increased investment in that technology, is it going to lead to some self-service that's going to reduce some of those administrative assistant type duties in this area?
That is the plan. Training contractors, training the public on new systems. It's going to take time, I'll tell you that. But as our digital dexterity increases as a society as a whole, we'll be glad we're there and have a spot for them. So that's kind of that program. And you might notice a lot of our office equipment and furniture lines, line 19, I kind of did this with each budget. Part of going to a new IT company, you kind of see your vulnerabilities and your flaws. we've been buying undersized compute machines for a long time. Now we match the power of the machine with, who's doing the work. But some of these are, and I don't know the technical term, but are basically what you'd use for a conference room is being used for someone that maybe has 4 or 5 windows open at the same time. So I'm kind of accelerating our replacement program a little bit to get better machines in front of our employees so they can be more effective. So you'll see not a lot of money increase, but enough for you guys to look at. Page 7, municipal court. Not a lot changed here. On the line 13, the legal service size, we did up the judges' pay a little bit. I determined we were pretty conservative with that because we went to, so I left it level. But if you look at FY 2021, we're about $22,000. We're trending even below this number. So I think we can more than cover it with the budgeted amount that we had. Prisoner inmate housing is always a fun one. If you see in FY 2020 and 2021, we barely spent $3,000 out of that line, but prisoner inmate housing is if chief catches a really bad guy and he has to go to Sedgwick County court or Sedgwick County jail, they charge us for the use of their jail. So we don't know when it's going to happen or what's going to happen. So we kind of have a line item waiting for it if need be. Other than that, nothing much new on the municipal court side of things. Page 8, parks and grounds. This has been our probably most consistent budget. Not a lot of moving. We have 2 FTEs out of that, out of this department. Mowing of all the parks, we did kind of say, let's start contracting out some mowing. It might be, I estimated 8% increase. We're seeing a large increase. We contract all our mowing at the beginning of the year, so we should be stable this year. But what I'm thinking is next year they're going to come back and hit us with maybe an 8% increase. So that's what I'm planning for in 2023. We are going to do a joint park and recreation study in 2021. Hopefully we get it in. I think it's in the plan. So a lot of those needs will be addressed out of our CIP. And we'll talk about that after the general fund, but that is something we are investing in, is what our facilities have, what are they lacking, and what do we need to plan to the future for recreation and parks. Trees, line 18 is, we are Tree City, USA. So I think a lot of times we do a lot of trimming and a lot of planting of trees. That one always seems to get some attention. So I upped the budget a little bit, or $5,000 for 2023.
So that includes trimming expense then? It's not just new trees?
Not just, no, yeah. It's probably 80% trimming
Okay.
and maintaining what we currently have.
I was wondering why we were spending $10,000 on new trees.
Yeah. And that's kind of why, even if we have 5,000, when we say, hey, we got to trim these trees, they're blocking roadways or they're doing, I just go ahead and authorize that expense because it needs to be done, kind of like your house project. So we might as well match the expense to what we'll spend. Mm-hmm.
Do we typically contract that out?
100%. I won't. If I see it, I'll say we need to contract it out. It's a dangerous job. On the line 40 and 41, if you've been here, I know a couple of years I used to try to pack this line with bigger, larger expenses. What ends up happening is maybe we're not ready for it, or so what I did is this more of a maintenance, $15,000 to maintain our equipment. Believe it or not, in the park world, $15,000 will barely buy you a swing set. It's unbelievable how expensive that stuff is. So instead of trying to do it in a budget that basically ends at the end of December 31, we're going to put a lot of these expenses in our capital improvement program that is non-budgeted, and we'll come to you with, hey, here's a program idea for $50,000. Do you approve it or not? So that helps. Instead of making the decision tonight, we can wait until we have all our ducks in a row, and we can fund that expense. Page 9 is our police department. This one, I did go ahead and add the officer we talked about last workshop, and I also invited Chief Atterbury here to kind of discuss our numbers and what we're seeing as a trend, and we can have a discussion on that. But the budget does include that extra officer, bringing our total FTEs for the department to 14, from 13 to 14, or full-time employees. Sorry. Yeah.
So I got back to work yesterday and decided to crunch some numbers. So we get one officer. That'll bring us up to 14. In 2014, when I arrived here, the population was right about 6,900, and we had 12 officers. We applied for a COPS grant through the Justice Department, and we were able to get one person to be an SRO in our schools, and that's Northeast Magnet, Isley, and also Sunrise and Resurrection. So she addresses all needs at all those schools. Well, in 2018, that grant was over, so we absorbed that position. But we also called USD 259 and said, hey, we've absorbed this position. How about you pay half? We'll pay half, since the officer is in the school district school. And they agreed to that. So they pay half of the benefits and wage for that officer. And to date, that's probably right around $115,000 to $120,000 worth of savings for us since 2018. You'll notice on the sheet that I gave you, look at the bottom. And if we were at mid-range with the number of officers per 1,000 people of population that other cities have, we should be at 19 officers, a little over that, 19.36. But we are, with this additional officer, at 14. I would request that over a series of years, a few years, possibly adding an officer each year to get us up to some midpoint. You'll notice that it's 2.28 is what the average is. Well, there's no actual national standard for how many officers you have to have per 1,000 people, because New York City is different than Russell, Kansas, or Bel Aire, Kansas. So it's hard to have a national standard because of the differences in policing in different places in our country. So what I did is I took those agencies in Sedgwick County so we could have some apples to apples comparison as to what people in our region, in our area do, and what numbers they have versus what numbers we have. There's quite a difference. I know if we went to 100% or at the top of the list, we would be at 25 officers. That's a lot. And I would not come to you and request that we immediately go there, but I would request that over the next few years, we add an officer at a pace where we can absorb them, because as we add officers, once we get up to about 3, we have to look at buying a new car and the equipment that goes in those cars. So our expenses are going to grow as well as our staffing. It's just part of being able to be a safe city. I did go through some of the safe city sites, and on some of them we're number 7, some were number 13. One of them were not on the list. How, I don't know. But we are a safe city. But I went to those that are on that list, and I looked at their officers per 1,000, and that they're also in that 2.28 range, 2.2 range. I want us to continue being a safe city. I want to not be number 7. I want to be number 1, as selfish as I am. And I think additional personnel will help get us there. One of the problems we have now is when we have someone who's ill, off on leave. We have one now that might go on long-term light duty. We have one away right now with a family emergency, which leaves one person, well, tonight on shift. If we have an emergency happen and everybody in Keachai is busy, everybody in Park City is busy, and the sheriff's deputies are busy, it can take some time before we get help from another agency to come and make that call with us, because we don't make serious emergency calls on our own. That's not safe, and we try to be as safe as we can. With additional personnel, we can be safer. We can answer calls for service in a more timely manner and give satisfaction to our citizens. So, any questions of me?
Chief,
Yes, sir.
is Keachai number one on that safe cities list? I see they have the highest
No,
officers per, no.
no, they're not. They're actually, because of their size, they're in a different
Oh,
area than we are. I think it's the 3,000 to 10,000 is where we fall.
Can you just explain to me, how does it work? Since we're in tight quarters with other cities nearby, how do you guys share resources? Do you always help each other out if you can?
Absolutely. So on a state level, there's a mutual aid statute, which says that if Justin needs help in his city, all he has to do is ask me, and I send resources his way. And it's covered, liabilities and things like that are covered in the statute. If I were to get hurt helping him, it's covered in the statute. But if I need help, I can count on you and you coming to help me. And that happens every single day of the year. We go help each other out. Today, we had a call at 53rd and Woodlawn, and Keachai showed up. We showed up. Sedgwick County Fire showed up, and we worked in concert with one another to ensure safety of the troops. So yes, we help each other. On any given evening, we may help Keachai, Park City, Valley Center, maybe even Mays, depending on what the type of call is. And that can happen first shift, second shift, third shift. So we're available for each other, because if we need the help, they're coming our direction too. And Wichita helps us. We help Wichita. Sedgwick County Sheriff does an amazing job of providing resources, because there have been some times when we were really short-staffed, when we had nobody to work for a shift or part of a shift. So we would call up the supervisor at the sheriff's office and let them know, and they would send somebody up this direction so that in case anything happened, they would have somebody closer so they could answer the call for us. Appreciate that question.
Are we having very many occurrences where now that we're fully staffed, where we're running into that same type of we don't have enough people on duty type issue for the number of issues going on?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Last Saturday, Mr. Dan here was at the fishing clinic, but at the time he and I were there with the other officers who were working that clinic, the single officer that was here had a mental call in town, and then at the same time an alarm came out. So a sheriff's deputy had to come from Western Sedgwick County to make one of those calls, and another one had to come and assist her with the mental call. And I believe Keachai came down to assist also. It happens. When you're down to one person and there's more than one call that comes out, you can only do one at a time.
I like the metrics you provided. Thank you for that. How do you think about like the size of the city in terms of like square miles? Does that play into it? I'm thinking about, there are some cities that are trying to patrol lots of square miles that are maybe more sparsely populated, whereas here in Bel Aire, we're a little bit more dense. Is that something that we should think about? I don't know what the numbers would show there. Have we looked at that just as another metric to
The size of Bel Aire and the boundaries are fine. Yeah, they zigzag a little bit, but we're not like some of the other cities who 10, 15 years ago, when Wichita was considering encapsulating all of us. They shot out with strip annexations a long way, miles. So Keachai goes to, I think, 110th Street North. So they're responsible for things that are way outside their normal city limits. We go out to 127th. Yeah, not that far. So our construct, the way we are laid out, is not bad. The worst thing for us right now is construction. That's limiting our ability to quickly get places, but there's an end in sight.
Okay.
Before that one's getting worse before it gets better.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Can you comment a little bit on, I know Bel Aire is considered to be a more highly educated city,
Mhm.
and that tends to correlate with lower crime. Can you just comment a little bit on, do we have lower crime in general that maybe could require less policing than, another city of the same size, or general thoughts on that?
I don't want to address it very candidly, but over the last several years, we have built a lot of homes. We have 500 some on the slate. Yeah. So we've added a lot of homes. Here we're adding neighborhoods, not just homes, but neighborhoods. A lot of those are duplex construction. I think a realtor would tell you that there's a difference in a person who rents a duplex than buys a home. And I'll leave that at that. So we're seeing a lot of calls for service. And we're going to see more calls for service as our population grows. As those homes become occupied, we're going to see more domestic violence calls, more thefts, just the normal things that happen in a community, any community. Our median income is high. I think it's still high. I didn't bring all that information with me, but I think our demographics are changing
I see what you,
now than what they were 10 years ago.
thank you.
So if you'll ponder this, maybe give it some consideration. I've talked to Ted, I've talked to Ty. I am not here asking for 5-6 more officers. I would appreciate another one. I know I just got one. But maybe if we work it like a vehicle replacement plan, or making an officer acquisition plan, so that we can stage these and plan for it, plan for those expenditures ahead of time, so that we can give Ted time to save that money up, put it aside, and then make it happen in a paced way rather than all at once.
And talking about the equipment issues, with this marginal increase, do you see us needing another vehicle if we added this one officer and more equipment? Okay.
It's usually about 3 to 4 officers, and then you'll need another piece of equipment. Yeah. So we would need to, Ted and I would plan that out, and then come to you when it's coming up.
For our current population, how many officers do you think you would need? You said you're
now,
kind of asking for one right now, but you're saying we might need to add one every year, just kind of based on our growth. Are we short more than one, and you're just asking for one because that's what you think we might say yes to today? Or
No, I think
short
we
3
should
and
have.
you're asking for one?
I think we should have 19 right now, but we're at now with a new position. We're at 14, so we're at a deficit. I would feel good to be mid-range with the other cities in the area. I'm not trying to be top end salary. I'm trying to be mid-range with being able to take care of our citizens and having the coverage so that we can have 2 officers on shift all the time. Sometimes we'll have 3. Maybe we'll have 4. On first watch, you have the lieutenant and I here. We have, and 2 first watch officers. And during this time of year, we have the SRO who's out of the school, who's working the street with us, but she's getting ready to go back. So it would be good to be able to have better coverage so that when we have people away, people on leave, training, ill, vacations, that we would still have that 2 officer minimum of 2 officer coverage.
Are these new officers you're talking about, do they always come in at the bottom of the scale, or are you looking at some people that come in at a higher rate?
If somebody's not trained, they're going to come in at the bottom of the scale. And then because we have to send them to training to KLETC, and they have to go through the 14 weeks of training and then some additional weeks of field training before they're allowed to be out on their own. So they're going to come in at a bottom rung. But somebody, more to your question, somebody that comes in with a few years of experience, I'm not going to start them off at the same person I would start somebody that had no experience at all. I would bring them up a few ranges.
Right. Well, I'm not sure I asked my question right, but are you looking for somebody at the bottom, or are you looking for somebody with more experience?
Well, I would love to get somebody who is already experienced, who already has that CPOS certification to be able to be a police officer in the state of Kansas. They've already been through the training, probably been through some additional training, and to get that person is good because I don't have to train them up. They're already trained.
Okay. I guess I'm still not clear then. I'm kind of thinking bringing in rookies versus people with 10 years experience or something. We kind of need a mix is what I'm thinking of everybody in the department. We need some new ones that are going to work their ways up, and we need some that are already experienced that can kind of help the younger ones out. And
well, if the market were such that I could pick and choose those a little more than I can, I agree with you, because I do agree with you. But when we open up a position, we get a finite number of applicants. And sometimes you don't get that person that you want. That demographic that you can put the check mark next to. That person may not come through the door, even though we try and we make phone calls and we coordinate and collaborate with other people and schools and whatnot. Sometimes they don't come through the door, so we don't get them. But if I get a person, if I get you and you're qualified and you don't check the check marks that I need, but you're qualified and you fit the mold for what we're looking for, I'm going to hire you.
okay, and this is the tough question about how much difference in salary is there between the guy that you're going to have to train some and the one that comes in and he's.
You're probably looking at 4 to 5 pay ranges.
Which is how much in dollars? Are we talking about a $5,000 difference in the budget,
like
or
10 grand?
So this came up pretty big when we were discussing starting certified officers at 28 or a higher level on step 1. We actually have a trainee scale that's a 5-step scale lower on that. If you come out like straight from college, you're going to be in the 18 to 19 range, and then you'll get a 2.5% up until that 5th year. If you haven't cut the mustard in 5 years, we'll either get rid of you or you're going to move up to the 28. So there's room in our scale as designed to hire some of these kids out of college and train them up, but not pay them like they're certified 5 years.
So what I just heard you say was there's about a $10,000 difference between the guy that's
Could
brand
be.
new,
Yeah,
fresh,
yeah, it's good.
and a guy that's got enough training to send out on his own and do something.
Because that person
And that's
trained
not a
is,
huge amount of money in the budget overall is where I'm
right.
trying to go.
That person who's trained is valuable, and valuable to us and valuable to others. So if they stay on the market, they're going to disappear, and we'll be without. So when they come before us and we get the opportunity to interview them and find out what their qualifications are, and then we do our background and find out that that's the person we want, we take them immediately because we don't have the luxury of waiting for somebody else who might have a couple of more check marks.
I'm fine with all that. I just wanted to know how big a difference that was. And
Oh, yeah.
like I said, $10,000 in our budget is it's worth talking about, but it's not that big a deal. Is that
This
okay?
this seems like a hard problem, like, you know, figuring out what's the right number of officers, because the community doesn't want to be under policed. When we call 911, we want you guys to show up and help us. But the community also doesn't want to be over policed either, and certainly doesn't want to be overtaxed for over policing. And the population method of kind of defining the number of officers, you know, when I see 19 on there and we currently have 13, feels like there's a pretty big gap there, and that makes me, I don't feel like we're in, you know, a dire situation because we don't have 19 today.
You don't feel that way, but when you have two people, one who may leave, one who's going on light duty, I've got another one on light duty right now, and a third one who might go on light duty, all of a sudden I'm in crisis mode. But if I had 19, I wouldn't be in crisis mode. But I see next week might be I'm in crisis mode for a period of time. So if I had the additional personnel, I wouldn't be in crisis mode.
I'm just wondering, you know, population is a metric. Then you've got, you know, the size of your city and like how many miles you're patrolling. That's another metric. What are we seeing like from call volume? Are we seeing growth in like number of calls we're having to respond to as a result of the population increase? Is there anything you can share with us there?
I don't know if, well, with the population increase, you're going to see some more larcenies. You're going to see domestic violence calls, and we're seeing that. The other thing that we're seeing a big increase in is calls with mentally ill people in some sort of psychological crisis, and we're seeing a huge uptick in that. And part of that is due to the pandemic, and part of it is due to society. The opioid crisis, the methamphetamine crisis, the high potency THC marijuana is frying people's brains, and we have to deal with them. The young man we dealt with at 53rd and Woodlawn today, one of those guys, we got him to ComCare.
I actually drove by while that was occurring. I saw it. It was right there by the corner of Isley.
Mhm.
Yeah. One follow-up question I would have is if we determined that we truly are 5 short and we wanted to do this plan of stepping up officers over 3 or 4 or 5 years, if you could wave your wand now, what would the mix of those 5 be? Like, kind of to hit on John's question of how many entry level versus kind of experienced would be in that number of 5? Would it be 1
well,
experienced versus 4? Like, just to get an idea of what
If-
kind of level we're looking.
Well, I'm selfish. I want
All-
somebody I don't
all
have to
top
train up
notch.
from the ground up.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
just trying to get a
yeah,
feeling
just
for what
just
that
like
plan
you.
would look like.
You don't want a brand new, fresh equipment operator hopping on your $400,000 piece of equipment. You want that guy that's got some experience, or gal, and that person who can step in and make it right from the beginning with very little orientation. We're the same way. So if I could get 5 people who were certified and had some specialties, absolutely, I'd take them. And I would, if I had to choose between that person and the brand new person, I'm sorry, brand new person. And it's a good business decision to do it that way.
What kind of time frame are we looking at to bring these on? I know we'd have to approve the budget first. So that would be August or September we're looking at to approve it? September?
So it would be January because that's when the
September.
2023 budget kicks in.
Do we have enough extra money in this year's budget though that
Start
we can
early-
start hiring
early.
and start early?
Yeah, and that's where the detective position that's funded currently would come in play. We haven't expended that portion of the chief's budget, so we could potentially
You could actually
go
hire
ahead and
somebody
post
right now.
tomorrow and get interviews going and get someone hired. And as long as the problem is I don't want to say that if Chief's got other plans, and which he usually
Well,
does.
and if he
And
wants
I
a
do-
detective still, he's.
Well, I do have other, because one of these people that's going to be on light duty long term, I would put them in that detective slot. So I'd have somebody doing that detective job, not making detective pay, but but doing that detective job and still keeping them here so they can continue to work
Okay, but that would still open up one position, right?
on the street.
On the street. So there's no reason that we couldn't go ahead and hire somebody today as under the financials that we have.
Right.
So are you saying your budget for 13, but you only have 12?
I have 13 right now.
Okay.
I may be down to 12 soon. And then I've got 2 that are going on light duty.
Well, I wasn't
But
understanding how you could say you had the detective position open.
He's budgeted for 14 because he has the open detective position.
Well, now I'm budgeted for 14. With this, I haven't had 14 before now. I've had.
No, I
I've
thought
had
the open
30.
detective position brought you up to
Right,
14.
yeah, open detective position brings him to 13. He's at 12
Okay,
now. 12
I'm
people now.
misunderstanding.
He's at 13 positions, 12 people.
Okay. No, the budget increases to go to 14. I understand now.
Okay.
That's all right. We want to do it.
How do the part-time positions play in? It's 14 full-time, 2 part-time. When we look at the comparison that you handed out, those are all full-time positions across the other cities? The
Yes.
comparisons? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Because I do have 3 people who come and work part-time and save us a lot. And what I mean by save us, I don't mean save us money. I mean save our bacon because we're needing a body on the street so we can make a phone call and they usually respond quite well.
Those are included in your, as full-time equivalents in your numbers here.
No.
They are not? That's what we're-
Yeah, I didn't include them
That's
in any department. I only included the full-time employees.
So the
how
budget,
often do we leverage those people? Like, does it,
Every week.
so does that kind of result in like another half of a full-time equivalent or another full-time
Oh,
equivalent
you probably
between the
would.
two? How does that add up?
I would have to find out from Ted how many total hours, because that's what it comes down to, is how many hours they each work per calendar year. And then we can do that math to extrapolate the full-time equivalent.
I was just curious.
They're usually budgeted around 640 hours, which it's kind of hard because one might only do 300 and one might do 900. So really what I see is when an officer's on vacation or something, we have a part-time guy come in and fill out. That they're more valuable than we know.
hey, Ted, while you're there, where's the resource officer income come in on your revenue side?
So on the revenue side, I pointed, go all the way to page 4 on the grant page, line 14. It says grant US 259. It's about 42,000, 43,000 a year. Then I fully fund her salary out of the police department. I don't try to split it and mess with it. It's so much easier.
Any other questions on the police department?
I think this is really good. I appreciate the metrics. I think like if we do this again, it would be super interesting to add additional columns to this that included, like if we knew kind of how our call volume compared to these other cities, that would be an interesting metric, just like pure number of like calls we respond to. And then like the square miles that we cover, it would just be 2 more data points that could inform kind of our point of view on how we stack up to our surrounding communities. That's kind of my only thought on, looking at this over time.
Yeah, and that it becomes problematic because of the way some departments count their calls for service. It's not apples to apples to apples. So we could study that to death and still not have resolution because the differences in reporting from one agency. It's like budgets. I've looked at so many budgets over the last few weeks for departments trying to find different things, maybe for tonight. And there are so many different types of budgets and how they prepare their documents. They all win awards, but they look so different.
No, I agree with you. I think any metric we look at is going to have some weaknesses that we can use to punch holes in that metric. And that's why if we had a few metrics that could be interesting, at least, if nothing
I'll
else.
try to find some more for you. If I
I-
get them, I'll send them out.
I agree with Justin, Chief. Just even tracking our own to see trends, it'd be good. I mean, even if we're not comparing it to somebody else, I think seeing a trend line of our growth of calls versus growth of population, or maybe at some point a plateau. I think it'd be nice just to see our data, regardless of others.
I can show you, I could probably extrapolate some crime data for you.
Yeah, but not call.
The
monthly
Some of
report.
that data is there.
Yep. Yep.
Not all of it, but some of it's there.
Right.
But I've also got the annual totals that we could look at,
Right.
and I can pull it together. Anything else from the
I have one lingering question about light duty. So these are folks that have been injured or they're pregnant, or that's what sends people on to light duty?
yes and yes?
Okay. And so I'm just curious, like, what is the typical breakdown? Because if you said 3 of your officers are either on light duty or headed that way, maybe. Okay. So 23% of your force how do you absorb? I mean, is there that much desk work? And what is can you define light duty as well? What are they doing?
What the one person's going to do is sit in the detective chair, and they're going to do follow-up for the other officers' cases. Third watch officer needs to contact somebody about some additional information on a case. They're going to do that. Walk-ins. We have a constant flow of walk-ins, people making cases. They've lost their cat, or they've lost, something was stolen. They've had an argument with a neighbor. That we make those cases also. So that person is going to do that. We're going to task out, one of them, it's not going to be much of a change, but the problem with, and I'm trying to stay away HIPAA, from naming names or positions, but the other person is going to be able to continue what they are normally doing, but I lose that person making calls on the street. So I'm at a deficit of one person. Because they're both on first watch, I lose 2 people off of first watch.
So these folks on light duty, they have plenty to do. I mean, they're not just sitting in a desk staring at the wall, but
Right.
the street issue. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We have enough calls. Normally, the officers do their own follow-up because we haven't had somebody sitting in the detective chair. But now that we have somebody sitting in the detective chair, they can let that person do the follow-up, and they can, do more patrol, get out and engage.
She's too proud to say this stuff, but much like a lot of areas in Bel Aire, like what's going to happen is Chief's going to patrol. That's usually what happens. And then the long-term effects of that is, he has to stop at whatever administration and patrol. Same with, all other department heads are usually trained in everything their staff does. And so when you have those situations, the department head steps up, or a small organization. So that's kind of my 2 cents on, and kind of where we talked about for the longest time we've been enduring. Now we got to prepare for this population coming up. So, and this is part of it. The other thing with, adding, we can certainly project, and I'll do a forecast that shows, hey, if we add a police officer in a year or 2 year, what will that do for the budget? But this is all really good. If someone asks why didn't you lower my mill levy, that those types of questions come to your ways, because we're growing population. We got to add police officers. We got to do that kind of things. There's other ways we can achieve it with land debt and whatnot. But these are the type of resources that as we grow, we need to capture this growth and hire new police officers and keep the staff we currently have. So it's just a good little point to make.
Overstress the leadership of the different departments, but it's always good to keep close to the chest what the workers are doing. Getting out there and doing it.
Very, very close to the chest we are, aren't we, Chief? Usually when they get back, they correct what I do. So that's no. One of the bigger lines and a topic of conversation we'll come up with in the police department budget is line 12. We have body cams, dash cams, and the storage of video is going to be, as we compile, as the first server fills up, we need a new bigger server or the cloud based. So just to let you know that all these cameras just came on relatively recently, and what we're doing is running out of server space. So how do we pivot and capitalize? So right now for 2023 is kind of our year to figure it all out. We're going to continue. One decision we might have to make, but with the dash cams, it's about $11,000 to store and upload and all that product to serve. We also have a body cam with a different company. We're going to discuss that a little later tonight versus on-premise server versus the cloud-based server. I'm leaning more towards the cloud, and that's what the $5,000 is for that. Eventually, long-term, we'll want to, I don't want to speak for Chief, but at least from the financial perspective, it makes more sense to maybe go with one company and do dashboard and body cams all together. But that's going to take time. I know Chief's been asking that question, and you talk about backlogs. I don't think they'll answer or give them a quote for a year. I don't believe that's where we're at. So we're kind of at a position where we need to continue what we're doing and be prepared to make that switch when we can. So buying a $30,000 on-premise server might not be the best idea right now. However, we might have to go to the cloud for some of our footage or for our services to get to that point where we can go with one company. Does that make sense, Chief? Is that kind of?
Are we keeping historical data on the server, or are we moving it off the server?
So the WatchGuard server.
So the WatchGuard server, it's everything. It's stored here. Makes me very uncomfortable. With cloud storage, what you have built into that cloud storage is some redundancies with server farms spread across the country. That means that, if this one goes down and this is destroyed, we still have it somewhere else. Right now, it's downstairs.
Right.
And we don't have it stored anywhere else. We need to have it stored somewhere else because that's critical information for the cases that we work for prosecutions. It's discoverable. I mean, it has to go through this discovery process when we have prosecutions, and we have to give it over to the defense and to the prosecution, and we don't want anything to happen to it.
But you have a backup system, right, on those? Yeah. So.
Well, but only recently.
Oh.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I was just wondering, historical data, like your server's not keeping 2 or 3 years worth of data on it, is it?
Yes. Because
Could
some
that
of those
not be
cases are
moved
still
off?
active. What we do is we go through and we categorize the cases
Mhm.
and we catalog them in such a way as they come up for purge,
Mhm.
so that we're able to purge the ones that we don't need. But cases that are being prosecuted or might be appealed, we have to maintain.
Yeah, you
that
have
data.
maintained those. Yeah. Okay. So you are doing a purge system where you keep the record elsewhere, just not on the server.
Well, it all has to remain. It has to remain in our custody.
Right.
Whether it be on the server or now on the backup.
Right.
But ideally it would be in the cloud, so we wouldn't have to worry about a lot of the maintenance that we have to worry about now with our current vendor or our past vendor.
When you say purge, you mean permanently delete?
Yes.
Okay.
If I stop you and talk to you about something that has no consequence whatsoever, we keep that for 60 or 90 days, just in case somebody says, "Hey, did you talk to John?" Yeah, here's the video.
Okay.
But after that, if somebody hasn't asked in that period of time, and it's not a legal matter, a car stop with a warning, we purge that out of the system.
Right. Okay. And I guess kind of to Jim's point, so we're keeping stuff for a case that's been resolved. It may be, I can't think of the right term. They may want to not close it, but bring it back. Appeal. There's the word. They may want to appeal it. Can we put that kind of data onto a slower type of backup so that we still have
that's
it,
a
but it's
discussion
not?
that we would love to have with like one of the vendors that told us they could come out in a year and give us a quote.
Okay. Because I come from way back when we put everything on tape and it's got sent to Hutch and in the salt mines.
The other nightmare we're having is our current server Hell's Watch Guard is how long does it take Lieutenant Fox to provide a video to a different agency that might want it?
Could be a couple of hours.
Yeah.
It should be a few minute process, but it's so full that it doesn't have room to buffer what it needs to buffer to then write it to the disk. So because it's struggling for space, it takes it a long time to write to the disk. So it's a terribly long process. So once we get it, ideally, if we get it in the cloud, we can change some business processes so that if a person wants a copy and they're legally justified to have a copy, we can send them a link in the future with the cloud system, and they can go on and download it and view it. But we can't do that.
It kind of seems like this line item, the cost increase is what it is, unless we just like want to stop capturing video, which I don't think we want to do.
Oh no, it is so valuable. There's probably not a month that goes by when I don't have somebody call up to complain about an officer. I view the video. And go, yeah, that's not what happened. And we're able to save ourselves a huge investigation, administrative time by just having that. That's just one example. The other one is that, for instance, the Garden City bombing plot, Lieutenant Fox and I ran into one of the suspects, and we were able to provide that to prosecutors, the federal prosecutors who were working that case, and they were able to glean some, good information for the prosecution of that case out of just a suspicious character call. So you never know when it's going to be as valuable as it might be until after the fact. But to have it is gold. To not have it is regret.
Moving on. Really, everything else is almost normal department. Vehicle fuel is always a fun one with the police department. Some years we have good gas prices, some years we don't. I did increase the amount I believe we're going to spend this year to about $36,000 from $25,000 that I originally budgeted, but that was more in line with historical norms. However, as you guys know, gas prices are up. And we must pay it. So that's kind of where I'm at in the $40,000. I hope it's under, but of course we don't want to run out of fuel for our police officers. The other thing, body armor, $6,000 by law and by sanity. You have to replace your bulletproof vest every, I believe, 3 years or 5 years, every 5 years. The federal government is pretty nice in that they have a federal program that'll pick up about, it used to be half. Now it's about a third of the cost for those vests. So I apply for a grant every year, tell them how many vests we're going to buy, and they write a check or send a check, and then we purchase the body armor. So that's how that program works. And then the rest, about $18,000 for all kinds of police supplies, belt equipment, updating boots, a lot of those other expenses. So if as well as training, I know Chief could be up here another half an hour to talk about how much training they're going through and improving. But I think in this day and age, it's very important to highlight that all of our officers have as much resources as they can to good quality training on person. And during Lexipool, we made the commitment to do updated online training for our officers as much as they want, as well as in-person stuff. So that's another thing we can really highlight in our police department. If there's no questions on the police department, we can go to the next one, recreation.
Line 13, 14, Ted, how did those go down? Insurance and compliance expenses
How do they what?
go down?
So compliance expenses is tied to the code enforcement officer that was once in the police department budget, and I moved it out to the planning and zoning. Liability insurance, boy. Chief, you know what's going to happen to liability insurance with crime. And we of course have liability insurance with criminal or with police officers, and that market has been very high recently. So what I'm looking at is about a 11% increase. And that's off the estimate, not off of what FY 2022 was. So. Yeah, and I think a little bit of that was I'll have to check on that. It might have been including. So I how many employees you have matters how much I charge just general liability insurance. So I want to make sure that I didn't, once we remove the code enforcement officer, that funds didn't go with them. So it's more of a formula based on how many employees you have in the general liability. But the reason there's $30,000 or $40,000 is because I attribute all the police officer insurance to their department. On recreation, pretty base budget. The one thing I will say is we've been without a rec coordinator for I think the last 2 or 3 years, and we finally filled it mid-year this year. So I imagine a few of these rec assistants or part-time jobs are going to fall off. So I might adjust that in the 2023 budget in the next draft and get that right sided. But I don't
Talking about line one.
line one. Sorry.
I was going to ask about that.
Line one. Yeah, it
Like
looks
more than
it
the
looks like
5%
a
increase.
pretty darn big increase. And I noticed it when I was working with Ty, and I just left it in there. I need to sit down with Brian and discuss it, but it'll be lower in our second draft. But that's the reason why my formula just kind of kept all those part-timers and added a full-time. So again, day camp, we're going to run again next year. Any questions on the rec department budget? Seeing none. Senior center, page 11. The only thing I really
10.
changed. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I was curious because I just happened to be walking through when the fire department was spraying down the kids at day camp today at the rec center. We must be just taking a loss on this day camp as we get it going, because it just seemed like there were just an inordinately small amount of kids there. Is that just, like you said earlier, word of mouth's going to spread, and we just wanted to get it started because the Y isn't renting it out anymore?
Yeah, Brian was concerned about losing about $11,000 in facility rental income, and I think we're about break even this year. Believe it or not, I'll run the numbers, but it wasn't. There might be some disparity this week, but it's sold weekly, so there might be a high attendance one week and a lower attendance next. I'm sure Brian will have those numbers soon. But we kind of want to see how the full season rolls, and then we'll see how it goes. But the biggest thing why we're keeping it in is because you have to get licensed with KDHE, and you have to do a lot of upfront work. And once you do it, you just do a license renewal. So if it does lose money this year, we can up it next year and then evaluate it. But
Okay, thank you.
Well, the other thing we ran into was it's, as Ted said, it's got to be licensed, and the state they're way behind on staff, and so we were planning on having it, but we didn't get the official license till I think it was the 1st of May. And what happens is, parents that need this, they can't wait till May. They've got to get, because the slots fill up. And so he was hoping to have about 30 to 40. He's sitting at around 25 or so, because a lot of the people that were hoping to get involved, we didn't have the license, so they had to take a spot somewhere else. So that's why he's hoping next year our numbers will be up quite a bit, because as Ted said, he's got his license now, and they'll have a year under them of what they need to do and improve and change. So that's why he wants to try to get next year, because the numbers should be much better.
Ty, I was actually going to add that. So our 8-year-old daughter is in it. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about it, and we did have the same worry, because I kept checking in with Ashley, like, is this going to go? Is this going to go? Because we were trying to make a decision. But she's really enjoyed it, and I really do like the flexibility of being able to pay per week because we've sent her to 2 or 3 different camps so she can do some different things. And so I have noticed from week to week the numbers do kind of vary. I definitely think it's a worthwhile program. I'm glad you guys started it to give it a try, and next year you'll have another one from us because we'll have a kindergartner too. So.
So we go to page 11, and if we're ready, senior center, kind of discussed when I discussed the grant. We pay for our senior center director out of this fund, as well as some program expenses for the senior center. The only real change is line 19, where we were providing a grant for the senior club, but we'll no longer do that in fiscal year 2023. But we will, everything else stays about the same. If everybody's good on that, page 11 is mayor council. This was, and we got, some record. Ty, if you want to address line 1, I think maybe you were, or anyway.
Yeah. So John had mentioned to me about the salaries for council, and the fact that we have 3 CCUA reps who attend CCUA meetings, and was wondering about looking at maybe some reimbursements for CCUA, attending CCUA meetings, and maybe looking at salaries for you all. I don't remember. I think the last increase the council had was probably
2017, I think.
2017. So again, we just put the money in there. You can see it's not a huge amount. Obviously, that's up to you to decide if you want to do anything like that, but it's there in case you did. That totaled about $5,000 to do something
So
like that.
If I remember right, a CCUA is a non-paid. Is
Yes.
that not stated in the policies?
Yes. Well, I don't know that it's really stated anywhere in any policies, but you're right. There's no pay for serving on the CCUA board.
I'd support leaving this alone. No increase.
Yeah. That's my vote too. So
On principle alone, I'm going to vote against this, as I'm not in CCUA, but an extra $1.65 a day is not going to make a difference to me, and I think it just looks bad to taxpayers to give myself a raise.
Agreed.
Okay.
Clearly outvoted.
and we didn't even take a vote.
No binding action here.
Yeah, I know. But
And
I don't think it looks that bad because it's been 5 years since we've done anything. And we just passed an ordinance to keep people from being long-term. We put term limits in because we're worried about people and we don't even pay enough to cover the time. And at some point, it's like everything else we've talked about with salaries. You just keep decreasing the value of what you're giving somebody. It's still $250, but it's not worth as much as it was 5 years ago. And we're spending a lot more time than the councils were 5 years ago too.
I can totally appreciate where you're coming from, especially as a new council member. I'm like, yeah, I put more time in this than maybe even I expected, even trying to do my due diligence. But yeah, I just on being on the other side of it, the voting for a raise as a taxpayer.
Well, somebody's got to do it sometime, or you really just need to make it a non-paid position, because essentially that's what you're doing.
Yeah. I look at it as just a public service, and I really don't care if I get paid or not. I don't see it as an important issue to me.
Well, maybe that's the way you should go the other way then. Maybe we should make it non-paid.
I agree with leaving it, and I will not vote to increase it. I think we should not worry about that line item.
Okay. I'll revert it, and if someone wants to make a motion, you can certainly do that. But I would say, let's do that in August, not in September, because I have to publish the budget, and if it's only $1,000 difference than what you guys want, I'm gonna say no. So, if you guys want to think about it, you can. The next non-controversial subject is line 13. I have $20,000 for the Bel Aire Chamber as a membership for you guys. Do we like that? Do we want to keep that into 2023?
And the answer is no, because we told them they were supposed to show us that they were becoming self-funded and that we were expecting that amount to decrease.
And I think they've made some great progress in that area. Maybe Mr. Dean.
Yeah,
or
I can.
Ty
I mean, I was going to
Roger
give
could
it
tell
my,
us
my
more
official
about that.
council report next week, which I will not be here for because I'll be on vacation. So they have made some strides. They shared some statistics with us. The membership is up 146%. The revenue is up 123%. Whatever. I don't have them right in front of me. It would have been on my council report, but I can get those statistics from them and share them with council. I think that the goal of partially funding their director, from what I understand, was that they were going to take over kind of hosting the events, and they're going to have a kind of an active role in that. So I think I guess in my mind, as long as we see progress occurring, growth occurring, and them actually taking that role that they were designated to do, I would think as a growing city, we would want a growing chamber and we would want a growing business community. And I think that they're heading in the right direction, but I think they have a long way to go. I think they really do. They're still really small, but just like every small town with their small chamber, they're all trying to pull themselves up by the bootstraps after COVID. And I think as we continue to see more faces, I think it is also important to make sure that we have council members attending those and city staff, which I've seen several city staff attend chamber meetings and show support and encouragement and invite people we know that might want to help us grow. So that's all I've got on that.
So why the 12K increase again?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Are we on line 13?
Yeah, line 13.
And you have a $12,000 increase. Why?
I can look it up for you. I was just adding up all those memberships that are listed there.
Oh, it's not all chamber. Okay.
Yeah, no. WAMPO, LKM, REAP, League of Sedgwick County Association of Cities.
And I think we should leave the 20,000 budgeted, and we should evaluate whether that still makes sense when it's time to pay it, and invite the chamber to come talk about the progress since last year. They had some ideas that they were pursuing that I was particularly interested in that sounded like they would be profitable for Bel Aire. So I think getting an update on that and revisiting, should we continue this again as a separate discussion, but having it budgeted makes sense to me.
How much did we budget last year?
And that might be the difference in the 12,000. I'm not sure.
I would not increase it, because that was pretty much our agreement with the chamber last year, was that we would start tapering off on our support for them.
Well, I think Justin has a good comment. I did talk to Gary a week ago about the budget and stuff, and they're up to 31 members, which is up from like 10 or whatever they had. They do have all of the special events. They've raised money to cover all those, which was a requirement. So, and I think it's been 6,000 or 8,000 they've raised for that. And so I think that after the first of the year, they may request less, because he's felt pretty good with their finances and such, and they raise dues and things like that. So I think if you're comfortable leaving it at 20, I think that's good. And I think having them come in after the first of the year, give an update, and maybe a formal request, that it may actually be less than the 20 that they request.
Yeah, but it wasn't 20 before, is what I'm saying. I don't think.
No, I
it was
think
20.
like 10, we gave 10 before.
Yeah, so I'm saying I think
and-
we should budget what we gave before, and then we should see
I'll-
about even whether or not we give them that.
I can research it pretty easily for you guys and have you an
Okay.
answer, because I know there's some
Whatever
funny
it was
things
before,
with
let's-
events, and it
Yeah.
was all kinds of.
Whatever it was before,
was
do
a
it
lot
again this year.
Number fun there, I remember.
It was a lot of number fun.
Creative accounting.
Yeah.
If if you have any more questions on mayor council, we can move on to page 13, non-departmental.
I am glad to see line 4 go to 0. That was a good
Oh
one.
yeah, I was going to mention that.
Somewhat trivia, but it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why were we doing that?
Sitting city council members have a specific line in the unemployment laws that make them exempt. So Mayor Benaj asked about it. I researched it, and we got that $100 taken care of. So
You can never,
How
you
much
can
did it
never
cost us to
qualify
fix
for
that?
it. You could never qualify for unemployment as a city council member because you're either elected or you're not. And if you're not, you didn't get laid off. You got fired by the citizens,
Yeah.
or you didn't. you
Terminated
chose.
with cause.
There's your raise, John. $100.
Right. On non-departmental, I'll go ahead and we don't have to rehash it, but line 1 is where I budget the employee bonus policy program. So for 2022, we're looking at around $30,000. Again, might be less, might be more, but I imagine it's somewhere in that ballpark based on previous year's scores carried over the next year. And that's how I do that budget. So I'll add that in. We can talk probably a whole workshop on our IT move and what that entailed and what we found. And we might end up doing that just to fresh you guys. But we spent, I'm going to keep that about the same for maybe some fee-based services, meaning the company we went with, yes, they come to our assistance for free. But if there's a new project, say we got to upgrade a license on our servers, which we ran into a few of those, we have to upgrade a few different areas that I want some wiggle room to be able to do that for our staff. And that's why I kept that the same. On the line 11 contractual services, I split parks and mowing like City Hall public land because I didn't think it was fair to parks to put everything as a city as a park. So the mowing of public land is in line 11, as well as some software that HR software, accounting software, and some utilities side. Everything else is pretty normal. Line 32 or 31 is our sidewalk policy. You guys amended it to 15,000 this year. I imagine you want to keep up with 15,000 and keep evaluating the program as it goes on. I just included 15 for FY23, as well as about $40,000 in building and fixed equipment. If you guys ever go in through the senior center, that door is literally rusting out the bottom. We got one ordered, so that's what funds those types of projects throughout City Hall and police side. The transfer outline on line 39 is specifically for the street improvement program that PEC did. That's $790,000 for year 1, or technically year 2, because year 1's this year. And then what I did is made line 40, which is just a CIP. You'll see it's the same fund, same everything. I just wanted to highlight that we're spending this money on street preservation because I know that was very important to this council in the past, is to make sure we're signaling to our citizens that we're taking care of and we're addressing the street concerns that they might have.
Ted, just to clarify
Sure.
on 39, that spend is construction dollars. That's money being spent on the roads. It's not design.
Yes.
Maintenance.
These are all
Road maintenance.
Okay.
preservation.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
And really, if you guys want to get, and we'll go to the end, but line 40 is where if you wanted to increase, so that $30,000 I'm going to increase, I'm probably going to lower line 40 by 30,000 to make up for those differences. So that's kind of, if you're wanting to do some big project, that's where that money is going to come, and you got to weigh it against what capital improvement program you're not going to fund. So that's budgeting 101 and kind of important line for me and you guys to understand is if you want to add something to one budget, it's going to take away from something else, and that's the takeaway.
Just to make sure I understand that
Sure.
correctly, line 39 is the street preservation program that we did in the 10-year plan. And then you're saying you have another 367,000 for other capital improvement projects.
Or streets. I mean, we
Or
we
streets,
can do
whatever
we
you
want,
decide to do.
yeah.
But
Yep.
there is another 360,000.
So that's about 1.1 million.
Mhm.
This year we're doing 1.4. Instead of saying 1.1, I say, all right, street preservation and then any other project
Right.
you guys want.
That's fine.
'Cause I really don't want to touch I don't want to fumble this 5-year project program we have.
And I think when we did that review, that was intended to be the comprehensive street plan. So it would be unexpected that we would need that 367,000 for some sort of street program. Is that true?
The only thing I see that being, I believe that's the truth. It would be to either accelerate it or, so 53rd,
Well,
we would need to design.
there's some gaps.
We can do some gaps. Yeah.
There are some gaps. So Woodlawn was not included in that. 45th was not included in it. 37th, I do not believe was in it, and 53rd was not in it.
That's right. There were three
So-
big projects that they
So
excluded
there are
from
some
that.
gaps in what the GIS program has that need to be brought back in at some point.
Yeah,
That's a
and
great call.
in a preservation program, which that's designed for, is like I've heard the name maintenance. That's truly what that's supposed to be doing, maintaining. And some of these other larger CIPs are full rehabs, full replacements,
full
more or less, not really suited to a maintenance program. So
Yeah, I think some of the maintenance items were approaching that kind of
Right.
replacement level. They it's not just like slurry seal in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But there were like those
Patching.
3 projects that were big
Right.
gaps.
You had to go and do some more work. Try it. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Line 7, please. It's gone up considerably.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah. So
still saving us money? At one point, we thought it was worth it because it was reducing staff time.
Yep.
But it's doubled.
So I thank you for bringing that up. If you look on, and I won't make you guys go all the way back, but on the revenues line 21, we're about $10,000 in credit card fees. So what we found in 2020, it started in 2022, is we reduced no credit card fees for anybody paying their utility bill. Well, some permanent buyers decided they wanted to run their credit cards. And so I spoke with Ty and we adjusted the policy. Anything over $1,000, we charge it 2.5%. So a lot, it's about 10 to 12,000 of that is we got back in revenues to cover that expense. Now I will say it is growing. Last month alone, we did 11,000 transactions. So it's growing from, let me grab that piece of.
What's your fee charge?
Well, one of the other things I noticed somewhere was that we're doing a lot of them by phone.
Mhm.
So there needs to be some kind of, I would think there would be some kind of processing fee for tying up the phone, but maybe not. I don't know. If they came in person and wrote a check, we'd still be tying somebody up. So
Are these mostly water and sewer credit card payments?
Yeah, 99% of them. So a little history on credit card processing. We went from Forte, which is a processor that charges 2.5% convenience fee, 2.5%, back to the utility person. We were seeing about 200, 300 credit card transactions a month. Now we're at 12,000 because during COVID, we said, let's promote people paying online. I contracted with TSYS, which
We
is a
have
different.
12,000 customers.
What's that?
We don't have 12,000
1,200.
customers.
Sorry, 1,200.
we're growing. Come on.
Yeah.
1,200.
Wow.
I contracted with a different company that charges a far lower percentage because each card charges a different percentage, but the average we pay is around 1.5%. So this is where a lot of fun happens. We can either, as a policy, say we charge 1.5%, charge $1. I can get you some numbers on what would make us break even closer. The other discussion, and I don't know if we'll talk today, is we're looking at maybe if we get a new program altogether, those come with their own credit card processors. So we'd have to move away from the 1.5% we're paying right now and go back to either eating 2.5% or charging it back to the customer. So it's a kind of a complicated web. But if you wanted to change nothing on the software side and you wanted to recoup that, I put 38. That's just looking at trends. Probably more like 25-ish. We'll have to put 1.5% processing fee on each credit card transaction. Reasonable. A lot of cities do it. A majority of cities do it. I'd say we're in the minority of not doing it. However, is it going to promote people going back to checks, which takes more time? So it's one of those things we're unsure. Hopefully, the processes is right, meaning they're going to continue what they do. However, I'd hate to change people back to coming in or writing a check.
So are these credit card processing, these automated, or are they coming in and charging it each month discreetly?
It's a percentage based on the transaction.
I understand that, but what are the customers actually doing? Are they coming in discreetly and charging a credit, putting it on the credit card, or is it an automated process where you've got the credit card number on file, you charge the bill every month?
Yeah, we don't store any credit card information. They would be going online and
They're going online and entering it, okay.
Or in person.
Okay.
All our transactions are done that way.
Okay.
I guess my question then is, I'm not sure that's what we want to do, but as long as they're doing it online, we're saving time and effort of staff. But if we're paying a fee for the credit card and staff has to help, I could see charging a processing fee.
And that's where I get into and here's where
And
the
I think
difference
you
between,
consider doing that with checks too.
yeah, people have been doing it, mailing out
Yeah,
a
except
lot of
checks
different
don't
fees.
charge you 2.5-3% to run through the bank.
But they're still manually processed by staff.
Yeah, so then you have to balance whether we're charging you for the processing it or we're charging you because it's costing us money to get the money from the bank.
I mean, another technique I've heard, and City of Wichita does this, they just do a dollar transaction and just a flat dollar. So we can make that our policy and then revisit it next year and say, hey, it's only costing us $10,000 now or whatever. You can do stuff like that. The problem with, I'll need to get with Jackie on it, because there's certain, the number one complaint of business owners in America is this fee right here. They hate it. They want to charge it back to the customer. Cities were able to get kind of under the law and be able to do this type of convenience fee. It's a big business right now. Even if we do switch any type of software that says they're going to save you 1 million hours of staff time, they'll the one I have in your packet's a 2.5% plus $1. So it would cost a considerable amount of time or a lot of money they're making off those fees. And what they're doing now is the company used to third party it. Now they're doing it themselves.
I think there's a lot of ways you could slice that, and we probably need a whole separate discussion.
That's where.
Yeah, I just noticed it went up drastically, and that's what I'm.
It's a good point. I had it circled. I just didn't address it. The one thing I can say is I'm trying to keep those fees as low as possible, and I don't think I had one person come in and look, said they couldn't. First time ever, salesman came in and said we can't beat your rates. So that was good. The problem is going forward. Do we want to keep doing this as a cost of business or not? And that's what I see it right now. Is it the cost?
Why is it non-departmental instead of in the water and sewer?
It's a good question. I could probably. There's a lot of things like that that we can transfer into water and sewer, and that might be one of them.
Yeah, that might make more sense. And like I said, as long as if it's saving us staff time, then it's probably worth the couple of bucks we're paying.
Mm-hmm. Ready to go. Page 14, Central Park Pool. much like the $30,000 we collect in revenue, I don't tend to want to spend more than we have to. Again, the pool improvements, there is one big capital improvement that I put in the CIP. That's, resurfacing or relining the pool. But as far as the operational side goes, this is more of an operating budget. I'm comfortable around the $50,000 mark that we're at right now. We might have some tough decisions as chemical prices increase. Do we want to raise fees on the pool, or how do we want to slice that? But I think we can make it 2023 with what this is. Maybe a discussion for next year.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough thing to talk about because basically we're subsidizing the pool to 25,000 a year. And so
Oh,
a lot
man.
of people that don't use the pool are paying for it. Is kind of how to look at that. And we know I don't know if this is, no, it's not even in here. Ty said we're looking at resurfacing the floor. So that's going to come up, and that was going to be a huge cost. And we would never recoup that basically. What'd you say? Something like 50,000 or?
So, and that's in the CIP portion. If you want to reline it, which fixes some of the concerns we've had about the feet, scratching the feet and stuff, that's about 150. And then just to replaster it, it's about 50. But it's not as smooth as a liner.
I just have a really tough time thinking about spending $150,000 on something we're losing money on every year.
Yeah, you're going to lose money on this thing forever.
From
That's
a,
just
from
the way
a
it is.
municipal finance, just thankful we don't have a golf course.
I was about to say, a city's losing money on a pool is an old thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
golf
it's the same
courses are
on
next.
rec, right? We lose money on rec too, right?
On what?
The rec center.
Work Center.
I don't know. Do we? Do we lose money on the rec center, Ted?
Yeah. A little bit, but
Comparable to the pool?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
I mean, the pool's only open 3 months a year, and I think this is why a lot of cities are going to the splash pads, isn't it? It's a lot cheaper to maintain, and
Yeah.
Unless you're Tanganyika.
About, what do we look
They
at?
charge you a lot
Half
of
a
money to get
million
in the
for a
door there,
splash
so.
pad? I think that's what it was. $500,000 for a splash pad, but the maintenance and staffing is zero. So you can make that up pretty quick.
Ty and Ted, you might know this better. Do you feel like we're full usage on the pool, or with it becoming more or less a public pool within the last few years, does it just need some more time to market it as a public facility? In your opinion, obviously.
They do run into days where they have to turn people away, that they're maxed out. It's not every day, so we're not to that point yet. So there is some room to grow. The issue you always run into, as you all know, with fees, that you can raise the fees and then less people will come potentially. So, that's always a concern, is how much can we afford to raise the fees, and does that bring in more? All pools lose money. Pools are a quality of life. It's not, just like rec. It's just, and we're really in a service business. That's what we provide police protection. We lose big money on that. We bring in 100,000, we spend 1 point whatever million. So, yeah, that's a question that I think every council has to ask is, is the pool what we want? Do we want to continue subsidizing it? Do we want to look at splash pads? But yeah, I don't know that
I
we
would
could
never
ever
compare the police to the pool as a.
Absolutely,
Yeah, it's-
absolutely not. But
that's
Yeah.
all quality of life.
And what I really want to ask after I said that is, have we been increasing the fees each year?
Not every year, but every couple of years. And we're going to be doing that. A lot of your discussion has been about fees. That's after we get the budget done. Ted's going to look at all of our fees. We've got a fee schedule, and so he's going to be looking at all those fees and bringing those to you. And that's when we'll discuss, next year, can we look at raising pool fees, things like that.
so one of the other things to consider too is what percentage of the budget expense is the pool. It's $53,000, which is 0.6% of the budget. You compare that to the rec, which I'm not saying we get rid of the rec because the rec's awesome, right? It's quality of life. It's 5.1% or 400,000. So what do we, I mean, it's probably not worth our time to really worry about the pool, in my opinion, unless we think we're losing significant amount of money, which it doesn't look like we are.
Well, that's what I would compare is how much it's costing us, not how much the net gain. On the pool, we have a net loss of $20,000, and I think we've all kind of been okay with that, but we're talking about big future expenses. And the rec center, I don't know what the net loss is on the rec center. So that's what we should be comparing, not the total budget for the rec center versus the budget for the pool.
Well, I think the question of putting more money back in the pool comes down to, do you believe we should have a public pool or do you believe we shouldn't? And then you have to decide, do you want to spend that money or not? The current percentage of the budget really is negligible. But when we get to that decision, it's a bigger decision.
Well, and we get to the point where we're spending so much money on the pool that we ought to just let everybody in that's got a Bel Aire driver's license for free.
We do have resident and non-resident rates, but
Yeah.
so that's something on a fee schedule basis we can discuss.
Yeah, that's true.
So we also have a pretty substantial debt still against that pool. Is that correct?
Do you have to mention that, Mayor?
For previous maintenance,
About $50,000 in debt service a year until
50,000 a year.
2024 off the top of my head, maybe
Yeah.
26.
So I knew that was there. That's why I said there's no way you're gonna get well on a pool.
That popped in my head, and I said, I probably shouldn't mention that.
No,
Where do
that's
we
what
see
we're
the
here to
debt
talk
service?
about.
Yeah, what line item is the debt service for the pool?
So that would be in non-departmental, which is page 13, line 38.
Why don't we see that in the pool budget?
Because of debt.
It's a transfer outline. I can add one if you want, but
I think it'd be good to see that
it's a,
on
yeah.
that page. It just
Okay.
makes it more clear. Like,
Right. It's tied to it.
I know it doesn't matter. It all adds, the pluses and minuses all add up, but
The next department we got, page 15, communications and HR. Really nothing too crazy new here. Few salary increase or step increases and just utilities and a little bit here and there. The big thing, I believe we'll have a website. I shouldn't say that. It gets updated every year under our contract with SIP Plus. I think we're almost due to a redesign unless we did that last year. I can't quite remember. I think it was last year. But the next one, page 16, land. This one, I'm really starting to think, winding down. It used to have a lot of expenses out of it. Now it's pretty base budget. Contractuals, we usually spend, as you see in fiscal year 2021, if we have to replot a land or something, but really we don't own a lot of land anymore or any. So engineering and due diligence, we might have some costs throughout the year. You never know. Something always comes up. So that's what line 1 is. The big line 6, we were spending $130,000 for a grant reimburse or basically a grant program to subsidize people to move in the city of Bel Aire. That's finally over with in 2023. So we're good there. On line 10, I did get a request for some EcoDevo expenses, and this is where I chose to put it at the tune of $20,000. Economic development. Marketing.
So,
kind of way.
so what the thought there is that I'm going to start going to businesses and talking about economic development and trying to work together to bring enough data together to put together a Bel Aire brochure for economic development. Maybe even upgrade our website, or because we have one out there, but it's been there for 4 or 5 years with no updates at all. For economic development, and see if we can't start encouraging or promoting Bel Aire and bringing more businesses to Bel Aire, especially retail, but not limited to them, but that would be a focus.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I had on this was, I think it was maybe even last month during one of the meetings, was do we budget for this? And because one of the things I think the discussion was the money we were spending with the chamber was we viewed that as economic development, which I agree. So I think those go kind of hand in hand, like what we're spending with the chamber and what we're spending here could kind of coalesce a little bit, but I like that it's broken out so that we can manage expectations with the chamber too, as far as that goes.
Yeah, and it is a hand-in-hand type of thing, but I don't think that there is a resource at the chamber to put
Produce.
together
Right.
that.
Are you thinking about this mostly for our unsold lot that we have out here? Is that why it's part of the land budget?
No, to promote the city, not to sell land, to promote the city, to
Encourage
bring
development.
businesses to the city. It wouldn't have to be anything that we own, but maybe the lots at 45th and Woodline get sold and developed by developers who have an interest in doing that kind of thing, but they don't know what Bel Aire has to offer because we don't have that in a package to say, here's what we got. Okay. And here's what our current businesses see as our gaps. And these are the things that we can do. It was interesting today. I went to WAMPO meeting and we had two economic development presentations, one from Park City, one from Valley Center. And they got some pretty extensive stuff going on in those two towns. And they're, Park City is the same size as us, basically within 100 people or so. But Valley Center isn't. And they got a lot of great plans. Now, will those all come to fruition? I don't know, but I don't think we even have those plans because we haven't been working in that area. And it's not faulting anybody. It's just, we just weren't ready to do that before. So I think we are ready now. I think we need to move forward to that.
No, that makes sense. I'm just thinking about it being in the land budget, if that's the right place for it.
Oh, is this in the right place? Well, that's a
You're thinking it should be
county
up there,
discussion.
contractual, up there with the Chamber of Commerce stuff.
Maybe.
Communications has a small marketing budget. That's more appropriate if you're feeling. We can put it in administration if that put under tie. It really goes with silos. I have department directors, and I don't want to stick something somewhere where say, hey, don't touch that.
Right.
This
Right.
It looks funny under land.
I assume you'll probably work with Tristan on that from a marketing perspective.
Well, yeah, definitely. And Ty and I kind of talked about it. We may, and of course, we haven't developed all this ideas yet. We're just talking ideas, but we may even want to go get somebody who's really professional at putting these brochures together. That's not my area of expertise. I'm not that kind of a person, but there are people who have really good skills in that area, and so we take advantage of that.
Essentially crafting a marketing proposal for the city. And I think where this was is we were talking about the IRBs and what do we do with those fees. I think the discussion that I remember us having was what do we do with those? And in the past, it sounded like it did go to like communications, like any money that we made from those fees to kind of offset some of the economic development stuff they may support. But I agree with you, Mayor, on having somebody professional put together something for the city on marketing. I think it's worthwhile.
We've got to feed them the information.
Right.
That's
That's
the
all
point.
fine, but I don't think it belongs in land and
Okay.
probably administration or something like that. I don't know. And it should be funded, I think, from the IRB fees that we just charged, correct?
Yeah.
Because that's what they specifically
Can be.
say we can use it for.
Yep. I think that's what we previously discussed.
So just to be clear, you want it under administration or?
That's my first
That's-
thought. I don't
that's
know if
fine.
that's the right.
All right,
place
I'll
or
throw
not.
it under admin.
I'm
If
good.
someone has any other ideas, we'll change it.
I'm good with that.
And the rest, kind of we talked about last. We transfer a lot of all of our city at large debt into the bond and interest fund, and then the bond and interest fund mingles with the special assessments that we assess, and we pay the bonds because a lot of times you'll see this upcoming bond issue that's going to be on next Tuesday. We'll have a pre-sale or a final cost statement of final cost. There's a lot of different projects inside a bond issue. So these are our projects that are inside other bond issues that will send the bond and interest to pay for that debt. And this is our portion. The big one, of course, is our land debt, line 19. And we also discussed what to do with that $5 million. This is the line that if we were to retire the debt early or do something, anything that we want, this would go down and bring savings to the general fund.
I'm confused.
Sure.
We say we're transferring out land debt. Did we transfer in money someplace to pay for that?
No, we never transfer in. That's been the anchor on the city of Bel Aire's neck for.
The
Well,
transfer in is the property taxes into the general.
Yeah.
Well, it comes from the general fund or someplace, right? It has to come from someplace to pay that million because we haven't
Property
had it.
taxes, sales taxes, all.
And that's what I'm asking. Where did it come from to get into here to spend? And then the next question is special assessments. We're only showing 78,000, but the land bank owns the land across from City Hall, and we know the specials on that are 135,000 a year, I think it is. So where is that?
Line 30.
So yeah, so the second question, line 12 is $78,000, and that's special assessments for City Hall. That's under the City of Bel Aire's name. It's all legal matter. City of Bel Aire is named over that, and some PBC land and that we have left over that were in the reserves of Central Sunflower Commerce Park. And then the 135 will transfer to the land bank, which will make the specials payment for the land across the way. As far as the first question with where does.
Okay. I guess you're talking about land, not land bank on this money. So that then brings the question up, why are we giving money out of this fund for the land bank to pay specials on a lot when the land bank has more than enough money to pay it themselves?
Sure, we can remove that and use some of the $5 million in reserve in the land bank to pay that down if you wish. That's it.
I think we gave Ted the guidance to leave things alone until we figured out what we wanted to do. Just keep doing things the way we've been doing them, and I bet that's why this is still here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you could do all those things, but let's see what we can leverage. We'll be going to some conferences next couple of days and see if we can learn.
Just because it was brought up, and I won't prolong the. I believe when I started, 38% of all general fund governmental expenditures was land bank expense. I haven't even done the math right now, but I know it's 20 or less than that. So huge relief. All the refis we've done in the last 5 years on the city's general fund budget.
So how do we reorganize this if we don't want to do it for next year because we want land bank to spend some of its own money?
How do we reorganize it? What do you mean?
Well, instead of sending $135,000 to the land bank, if we decide the land bank should pay that $135,000, then we've got $135,000 here that we can do something else with, right?
Yeah, I would probably put it in that CIP transfer to CIP, and then
would
we
that be
address
part
other
of the
issues.
budget, or is that something we can do after we pass the budget?
We can do after we pass the budget. It's a transfer outline. It's pretty versatile.
Because it's the same question on line 19. I wouldn't think we need to transfer that much money out.
Exact same. We can short it.
And so that would leave, I don't know, $300,000 or $400,000 we could spend on something else like our 2% COLA that we're talking about.
100%. Mm-hmm. On page 16, we have the summary. The huge, the big lines are line 28, 29, line 30, and line 31 to me. At the beginning of the year, I said, we're going to increase our transfer CIP to 1.4. I'm expecting that we'll finish the year with 34% of reserves. My updated estimate, we're at 40% of reserves. So already 6 months in, I think we're going to end the year with more money than we expected. That means we start the budget year 2023 with more money than we expected. You'll see budget year 2023, it says we're spending more revenue than we have by the tune of about $750,000. What I say to S&P rating agencies, anybody else, I'll say we have a 30% reserve policy, which we have achieved right here. Here's 1.1 million that we're transferring to the CIP, our budget's operationally balanced, meaning we're not hiring people and then we're spending more on hiring people than we are than we are taking in revenues. So you can point to rating agencies, say that 1.1 is the difference. That's what we've practiced for about the last, since I've been here. I mean, it's a little more risk adverse, but I think with the risks that we see out here, it's probably the appropriate way to budget. But again, we can really make a mess of things if you want.
And as history has proven, you never spend the 30%. You usually end up with 35, 34%. So you're going to be better than that.
I'm
I mean,
pretty
at the end of the
consistent
year.
on that, but
Yeah.
but I will say, I really look forward to being the finance director in fiscal year 23 and 24 because we don't have crazy land sales going on. That is difficult to budget for because a lot of those land sales had specials tied to it. And when you sell a piece of land with $300,000 worth of specials on it, it's a real windfall for the city. So I wouldn't expect large windfalls year to year coming up because our expenses are stabilizing, which is good for everyone. And we can start again, endure to prepare. We can start preparing for things. And that's the general fund. Next, page 18, I have the capital improvement reserve. You'll see at the top on year one, which is 2023 projected, we have about little over 1.1 million coming in. I don't have lines on this. I'm sorry. I'll probably should add those, but it gets really sketchy when you print out Excel spreadsheets like this. So street preservation program, I went ahead and went all the next 4 years or all 5 years I put on that line. As you can tell, the capital improvement reserve program is just that. We're planning expenditures throughout the years, and then we just need to match it with funds. Some of the stuff that I was looking at in 2023, and I provided some support. Our HVAC here at City Hall is less than ideal. If I don't know who was here. Ty, were you here when they built? No. I think they built a beautiful building and they did a great job, but I think some of the windows and stuff they might have wanted a little cheaper versions. So and the HVAC has been giving us some struggles well over the last 2 or 3 years. In 2021, we spent over $8,000 in repairs alone. It's in 2018 is 3,300. So we were looking at getting a bid and presenting it to you guys to maybe replace some of these units up above us so that we're a little more comfortable as a staff. And that's all of City Hall and PD.
Is this a unit problem or is it a window problem?
It's a unit problem. I was just using the what I've heard from Keith.
Okay. Well, if we got a problem with the windows not standing up to
the
the
beautiful
weather.
thing about capital improvement
Replacing
reserve programs is this money's not spent until you guys approve it.
Right.
So
Yeah, I understand.
theoretically, you'll have a big report in front of you saying it's not the windows, it's unit 8, 9, 10, and 11. We spent a lot of money on these. Let's go ahead and replace them.
Right.
The other capital improvement project that we're looking at is keyless entry. I can't tell you how much fun it is to be the key master of this place. It is almost worse than IT because there's a lot of different keys to all these doors. And it'd be really nice to just have the card system for entry and with, for safety. I had someone come give a quick quote. It's about $44,500. I think $50,000 is on that. The other
Seems like a lot of money for keys.
big programs, if we keep on going down the line, we're still in the limbo a little bit on if we want to go out the RFP for design of a new public works facility. I went ahead and include that in there so you can see what the effects would be if we had that in, as well as we're growing. We're getting a new park, I believe, in the Skyview area, and the city will pay for that park to be over there. So that's in the range of 50 to 75,000. We're not sure yet. We're going to get designs, as well as we're going to have a brand new wood lawn. It'd be really nice to be able to improve Bel Aire Park. All these expenses, like you said, we need to start planning for. It might not be 2023. I know at least one park will be ready to go, but that's kind of where that little over $300,000 that I'm trying to separate from just going in the streets. That we kind of need some of these areas as we grow to invest in. So those are Ty and I's kind of idea. A lot of the smaller ones. I guess, and then we kind of touched on pool liner and pool plaster. I threw that in there just so you guys see what it does. So from the 1.1 million we started with, the ending cash balance of the capital improvement reserve, if you say yes to everything, which you can, we'll have about $75,000 left into it. And then we'll have to replenish this fund the next year and the next year and the next year.
So, Ty, I sent you an email sometime, I think, over the weekend maybe, about a grant for parks, $50,000 grant for parks.
Yeah, and I glanced at it. I took Friday and yesterday off, so I was glancing at it this morning.
Okay.
And one of the things that jumped out was they have to be shovel ready. I don't think we have any parks designed so in other words, it'd have to be designed to be shovel ready.
Okay. I had the impression we might be able to use it like for Bel Aire Park to actually fix it, because you got a tennis court needs a new base and basketball court that's got a problem.
Yeah. And
I thought you could use it for that, but maybe I
well, and I don't know yet.
Okay.
Like I said, I glanced at it. That was one thing that jumped out. But I want to look at it some more
Sure.
and run it
That's
by our parks guys and see if there's anything we've got that would fall within that we
Okay.
could try.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to look into it for sure.
And my general thought there is I see a budget for a new park, but I know some of our existing parks, need some work like that. And so I would almost think that we'd want to prioritize that before putting in a new park that is also going to need maintenance. Let's get
So
our
there's-
current parks up to kind of par.
Two issues with that. One is, you remember when we were talking about some of the development is, are we going to require new developers to put in parks or dedicate land for parks? And if they're going to dedicate land, then the city really needs to put up the money to do the park. That ties into this piece because this is in Skyview, and the developer did set aside 2 lots that he's going to dedicate to the city for a park. So he's given up that land. And so the idea is that, okay, if he's going to give up the land to do that, then we would put in a small, like a neighborhood park similar to Brookhauser Park or something like that. And that's
I think
around
that's
50.
a good idea. I think in
Yeah.
my mind, it's just a question of timing, and I'm sure we're not required to do that right away.
He's been asking about it.
I'm sure he
because
has.
he's starting to, all the infrastructure's in, and he's starting to build houses over there. So he's, and that's why it's for next year, 2023.
But I don't think we committed to any timing in our developers agreements or anything like that.
Nope.
That said, I think it would be a bad look to drag our feet too much on that. If we've made a commitment, I think getting a park built is good. It helps sell the lots. It helps sell the neighborhood. It helps bring more people into our community. So I don't think we want to specifically decide to kick that can too far down the road, because it seems like it's a little bit in bad faith to do that, in my opinion. It's not helping. The commitment to it is sharing in that park, and the reason to have the park is to improve the city and the neighborhood. So
I know Planning Commission requested that, and that's something that I think we all support, is having that green space. So I think it's a good thing. The question in my mind is just, do we need to go spend $50,000 there next year, or
right away.
is it a green space where we need to start planting some trees and making some investment and start to build it up over time?
You could phase it too, for sure.
So I had suggested that we look at finishing the sidewalk from Central Park to Isley. Is that in the CIP here at all?
No, we were going to try to get that done this year.
Oh, okay.
Keith's working on getting bids for that. So
I think we've also talked about needing to refresh our master growth plan, and I think we usually hire somebody to help us do that. Is that something that we would fund out of this CIP program?
I mean, something like that would probably be planning and zoning, upping a contractual on that. That's something would be a contractual obligation in 1 year. I'd probably prefer that. This is more capital
Okay.
improvement.
I think we should have that in the
Okay.
budget personally for the next year.
Probably good.
Yeah, any sort of long range planning costs, I agree.
Well, it's a refresh from what we've already got. We've got one, and we just
Yeah.
we're
It's
looking
pretty
at-
dated.
I understand it's dated. I agree with you that we need to refresh it, though.
Kind of plan to refresh it at least
Right.
every couple of years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and again, we're just this is just the plan, and I hate seeing all the TB determines. I think we should really work that, and you guys and I, we should really work out a plan. It kind of it's the one soft spot in Bel Aire because of our land debt. What we've had, we couldn't really plan very long. So one of my objectives over the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully, is to really get us on a schedule of, hey, this is what we need to do as a city. So
Quick question here. I see the tornado siren on here as a TBD. Are we thinking we're ready for that now? Is that coming up pretty quick, or what's the feeling?
it's been
about
on here
that?
since I got here. I think it's more of the. I'll ask Keith again, but I think it's more of it. We need to be ready for the county to come and say you need to put up a tornado
Okay.
sign of some
So
sort.
we think it's coming.
and they're looking at it.
Yeah.
A few months ago, I talked to the emergency management director,
Mhm.
and I think it was you and I, Mayor, were talking about it. That all the growth that's
Right.
would be east of Rock. There's no sirens over there. And so we were concerned about that. And they're doing a evaluation of all the county to find out where the sirens are, where they need to be. So they're going to provide us with something. It's probably going to say we need at least one siren.
Well, I think there's some emergency management money out there.
Yeah.
That could help us with that.
Right.
Reason I was asking a question. So, okay.
The other thing before we move on, I'll highlight. I completely separate it from the CIP, but it's kind of in the CIP. ARPA balance is still 1.2 million. We just received our second deposit in July. So
We need
fee
to
schedule
decide what we do
update.
that.
ARPA guidelines are my next 6 months. So there are a few things we need to update, like conflict of interest policy with council members, and then federal purchasing guidelines as well, and myself. So I'm going to dive into that here in the next 5 to hopefully 2 or 3 months, and then we can start making some big decisions on that. But
The other line item on here that has TBD is that utility management, accounting, and HR software.
mhm.
I read ahead in the packet, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the your department area, and read through your report about the number of calls that we're getting, the breakdown of that, the time we're spending on the phone with people, answering questions about their bill, paying their bill, starting service, stopping service. We should make it a priority to get it to where that's all online. It looked to me like we could cut out a lot of the work that we're having to do manually if we provided folks the capability to self-serve there. And I know that's going to be expensive to do, but I think that should be a priority.
Is that ARPA eligible?
So I was curious about that because we'd spent, I don't remember how much money on G-Works 3 years ago. And I thought it was going to cover a lot of that type of stuff. So I'm curious as to what is it not doing that we thought it was going to do?
So we can start. We can do that. So G-Works we started with. It used to be Data Technologies back in 2001. What we did 2 or 3 years ago is allowed. It used to be someone could go online and guess what they need to pay the city. So I think my bill is $200 or $150. I'm going to just send it to us, and we'd print a report and have to manually enter it to the system. That 2 or 3 years ago, I contracted with a third party called eCity that would take the file from GWorks, put it online, and people were able to see the amount they owed. That's all that they can see right now is the amount they owed. They pay it, it creates an Excel file that I download into our system, and we don't have to manually enter. So that was 4 years ago, and we've been doing that ever since. And it still requires a manual upload and download of an Excel file every day and checks. The first option I provided in my report was one I found with GWorks is starting to update their platform to provide better service. What it does is will replace eCity and will put all that information so you can see how much water you use, just a graph the last 7 or 8 months. The graphs will be on there, and when you pay, it links straight to our server and it will credit your account. So there's no downloading and uploading an Excel file. Saves 5 minutes a day, not huge savings. It could save some time, maybe if, Miss Smith needs to know how much she used yesterday, but those aren't the volume calls we're getting. The big program that option 2 would be an extensive, just completely get rid of GWorks and install an updated, a 21st century program that would allow a new citizen to come on, go online, fill out a form that says, hey, I'm John Doe. Here's all my information. As soon as it hits submit, it gets populated into our system, routed into a work file that one of our employees takes, reviews the data, hits OK, and everything's in the system already and good to go. Right now, John Doe has to fill out a PDF online and send it to us with his form of identification, or come into the downstairs and do it all by hand. And then our clerk takes it, reviews the data, and then hand enters all that information into our system. And then so in short, the current system for me to train a utility clerk, there's a binder about that big. The new system, the only way I'm going to spend $300,000 on something, that book better be a lot smaller and a lot easier streamlined.
So how does it work with the client that you just pull the money from the bank account?
So the best scenario that does is right now eCity is not set up to take that check payment because anytime you give authorization to take money from your account, it's according to our bank, you have to fill out a form, give me a blank check, because we get audited from our bank. I can't just take money if I find I have to have a certain sign. But if you do it yourself online, I don't have to take all that information.
But today you have how many clients approximately that you have that are already doing that?
1,000.
1,000 that are doing just
ACH.
online
ACS
transaction.
Yep. It's about
they don't have to go each month and update anything.
Nope.
It happens automatically and seamlessly.
It's a beautiful system. I wish everybody was on ACH, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not foolproof.
And the expensive transformational version of the software, new customer goes in, they say, create my account, sign up for service. They enter in all of that information online. They can sign up for their auto pay online. Nobody here in the building has to touch that. That's possible?
We'll review it. And that's where kind of like we're looking at some pie in the sky. And I think I wrote in my report, it's a good question. I love this topic. It's not going to save this job that I'm requesting this year. What it's going to do over the next 7 to 10 years, it's going to save maybe 2 jobs or 3 jobs that we're going to have to add to review all these docs if we stay with this legacy system. Or the other option is pray that GWorks, and they've made the first step going to a part of their system's cloud, and their plans to go to HR cloud. But do we want to roll the dice on that if we have ARPA funds sitting there for the onboarding? That's kind of my decision and what I want to work out with you guys. I don't think it's going to save this job. It'll save future jobs. There's so many pretty cool features you can do. Right now, we send looks like a typewriter letter to anybody that is delinquent or didn't pay their bill, and we mail them out. This new system, and I think GWorks is starting to come on a little bit with this. Our current system, which would be nice if we, in the meantime, it'll send you a text saying, "Hey, your bill's due. Click on this link and pay." You can pay through this link. The other, probably most pretty cool, if we have a water leak in the area, the new program will allow us to go Google Earth, put a box around it, and notify all the accounts in that Google Earth box. Say, "Hey, you have a leak, your water's off." So it's a real high level system. This is 2 years away, even if we say yes today. Maybe not 2, at least a year away. At least from my experience in talking to other finance directors, because what you're doing is you're converting all your books, all your accounting, you're converting all HR and all the utility accounts, and training all your staff on it. Hopefully not. I see you're highly doubtful. However, I've been around a lot of finance directors conferences, and every time someone says we're upgrading, it's a headache, and we say, "I'm so sorry," because there's always something
That's
going on.
Your job's about to get harder, not easier.
Probably the last thing I'll say on this, customers' expectation is so high right now. Look at Evergy. It'll tell you if you're using more. I got an email today saying I use more energy than I did last week.
I hate those emails.
Really? Yeah.
I do not want those emails.
So this new system, talking to this one company, they have a certain program that monitors the radio read and will allow those types of notifications. If especially, I'm at 10% of our calls are, why is my bill so high? And we're explaining, hey, we're probably irrigating our lawn too much. Let me look it up, and we can pull up the radio read and discuss it with them. So there's a lot of those types of calls. I'll end with, this is a good system to go forward with, but I did have to retag my cars. I'm an H, and it is funny how they have the most sophisticated software program, but there's always going to be a few citizens that don't understand the process, that want to talk to somebody, and we have to make sure we have fully trained staff on that as well, which what we currently have. But I think that's kind of finding that mix of what the new customers are expecting, and providing that small town customer service is where we need to be as a city.
So one of the things I was curious about is how much have we advertised or communicated with our water and sewer customers their options for bill payment, that they do not have to be coming in here month after month to do. Have we put together like a sheet of options on how to pay their utility bills, or how much communication have we done in that area?
Every new and current resident gets a welcome packet. We get explained. We even provide the ACH form with them. We say, "Do you want to sign up?" We specifically ask, "Do you want to sign up for ACH?" It'll just take it out, and they take it home, or they fill it out. That's probably attributing to a lot of our 1,000 ACH customers. The only way, because I think about this every day, because I take some of these calls, is, "Sorry, ma'am, we don't take over the phone payment." Do we want to be that city? I always say, hey, if you want to avoid calling me, you can always pay online. They don't care. It's one of those things. Like I said, customer service versus, we can get really, we can strip it all down if we want, but you'll get more calls, I have a feeling. So what we're trying to do is thread the needle a little bit, but kind of what the report said is it's starting to cost us in time, and my city treasurer's time, and that's where we're requesting one for you don't want to pay me to help customers ever, so that's kind of an easy one. So
I mean, the interesting thing is it's driving costs, and so we have a subset of the community that's exercising the most high cost way to pay for utilities. And so if there are things that we can do to, offer incentive programs to get people set up on auto pay, that might be something to think about. More communication about the options, maybe something to think about. But it sounds
So-
like
We've done
a
that
lot
in the
of opportunity
past. We've
there.
done some, we've offered some, like if you sign up for ACH, we'll give you a $10 credit or $20 credit or something.
Mhm.
And that gets a few.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's always two ways of doing things. There's another city that actually charges if you don't do ACH. They charge like $5 a month,
There you go.
unless you use ACH, and then you don't pay that fee. So, there's
I've heard of that too.
other
Yes.
ways that you can do that.
I don't actually look at the water bill, but is there something in the monthly statement that says you can pay it online that makes it, because you're saying we give it to new customers, but do we hit them up on a regular basis, at least yearly, to
So
you say make it easier for yourself?
So there's a customizable box in the lower left-hand corner that we can put. Fall Festival is on Saturday,
Yeah.
or I can put please pay ACH. Love BA. There's a set amount of characters. It's
I'm
an
just
old
thinking,
system.
Once in a while we stuff something else. Maybe we need an annual extra page that says, if you're tired of coming by the city hall every month to do
Yep.
this.
Utility inserts are pretty common. Couple $100 in postage, just based on weight. That's
People-
what it costs. I can send them one.
But people don't open those and read them, John.
What's that?
You don't read them. How many do you think are actually opening it and looking at it?
No, my wife reads it. She's the one that writes the check. Okay. So
And truthfully, if we want to solve this problem that we're talking about, let's go ahead and sign up for G-Works $10,000 extra, because that's all going to be streamlined on the website. And what that will allow you to do is pay by check online. And that's you initiating the transaction, not us. The problem we have right now, we have to initiate the transaction when we collect the payment.
but buying $10,000 worth of software isn't going to get me to go online and sign up if I don't know where to go.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a utility insert. We can drive people to the website. There's already, I mean, off the top of my head, 1,400 accounts set up on eCity, our current provider, that would just move. I think would just move right over to our new service, and they would just log on to their account and pay their bill, and they'll be able to see their history usage.
So
which is
remind me
automatic.
what eCity does.
Just it's our credit card processing.
Credit card
Face.
processes. Okay.
And it'll allow you to pay your water bill and then go sign up for a rec program and pay it all in one transaction. That's about it.
So it's a credit card transaction.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay.
It's again, not to get more, but it's a face to a back.
Well, I know this is a now problem. You've got a staff problem right now. My concern is hiring somebody as a full-time staff to do a job that we actually want to go away through technology and automation. We're kind of setting somebody up to not have a job in 2 years when we get this software implemented, because the future of, paying your bill, seeing your bill, signing up, stop service, that's going to be all online. It's going to trend more and more online and less over the phone, less and less in person. It seems like not a good idea to hire full-time permanent staff to solve that issue to me. But I know we have a problem right now. So,
Well, I mean, we have more work than we could possibly do, even with this new system. My report showed us versus Valley, and the only reason I know Valley real well is I came from Valley, and I know what each person does. They're adding another person this year to make us two ahead of us, and they have Tyler Technologies as well. Not the most up-to-date system, the one I'm thinking of, but
that's
They-
a competition I want them to win, is being ahead of us in terms of
More money.
yeah, but we're at critical levels of risk. Like Chief has, and I'm not gonna, Chief says he have support from other areas that come if a fire's going. Our support downstairs is non-existent. It's me, and so that's where we have problems, and it's going to result in turnover really soon if we don't address it now.
So there's a certain amount of, and just think philosophy here. I'm not proposing a solution here, but when I look at a $300,000 bill for software, I look at what does that buy me? Well, at 5,000 customers, that's $60 a customer that we just paid when we spend $300,000. Salary wise, it's a clerk for 6 years. Okay, that pays their salary for 6 years. So, $300,000 is just a hard thing for me to swallow to solve this problem. And I just really wonder if that's smart use of the money. So that's why what I'm thinking about.
So utility billing is just one module, one section of that 300,000. With 300,000, we'd get a whole HR suite where employees can go online and submit their timesheets. Right now, they send me a paper timesheet, and supervisors approve all online. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, all those go as well in another module that all talk to each other. So it's not just utilities. Utilities is the main driver,
Okay.
but all my finance stuff would go over there, and that would streamline check cutting processes, online bill pay processes. We're just scratching the surface.
But ADP and Paychecks both will do those services for you as well. I don't know if you've looked at those, but they do those services as well.
Sure. If you want to outsource our, accounts payable or anything like that, we can look at that.
It's another service similar to the software solution, right?
Yeah.
So,
Sure. Yeah.
And there's probably also other solutions that are just utility centric. If utilities are where the big problem is now, there's maybe other utility centric solutions.
I wouldn't suggest that because I want utility payments to flow into my
accounting system.
Yeah. Because then it's a wash or it's not worth it.
Yeah, this problem kind of reminds me a lot of what we went through as a business about 10 years ago. We purchased an enterprise level estimating software, which we were able to install across our company. And man, was that a big deal. That was a game changer. Like all our estimators could use the same database. They could all work in the same thing. It was really standardized. And it was also with a price shock like that. I remember at the time, and I don't know where we would be if we didn't have that. Like that was a really good decision. It was a tough decision. It was a lot of money to spend, but it made us a lot more efficient. It also helped incoming employees on board better. I think it has helped us retain employees because of the ease of using software versus manual stuff that we're doing before. But the thing I would struggle with, having seen us go through multiple, not just that one, but multiple enterprise software, is how painful it is when you do it. And at a time where you are super covered up, whether or not you can handle that extra load. That would concern me a little bit for you, like how to install that and get that turned over. But it does.
It's going to be more expensive because you're going to have to rely more on consulting and third-party resources to help you do it.
It does seem like a heavy lift. But I think, to go back to your statement earlier, I think this kind of software investment does set the city up for a lot more growth than we can sustain currently. So that'd be kind of my thought on it.
I'm always a fan of making the technology investment because technology makes your humans that you do have more efficient, and technology doesn't call in sick or, have other issues, and you don't have to pay for insurance for, I mean, it does, there is cost to it, but my issue too, because it is expensive and it's a big hassle at the time, but would ARPA cover like all of this? What would be like our cost?
So I'm going off of another quote I got from a fellow finance director for their city that was roughly our size. The upfront costs are the setups, the trainings and stuff. We currently pay about $18,000 to G-Works for software licensing and support. If I have a problem, you're always going to need support. Off the top of my head, and again, we haven't went out to bid for any of these, but the software package that I was talking with was around the 20 to 25 a year range for the license support and software. So a majority of that 300,000 is upfront cost, which is what you want when you're using ARPA money. Good question though.
This is just to kind of make one more comment. This reminds me a lot of the public works facility discussion. This is one of those hidden things that need fixing and needs done to grow, but all the people are calling us about the roads and the potholes. Like, this is one of those things that supports the staff, supports the city, and sets us up for more growth, but is a little bit hidden. People don't realize that the amount of effort and time and money we're spending now with staff or future staff to cover that or to support the infrastructure that we're building now. So that's hard. This is a tough decision. It's a tough spot to be in because we're at that stage where we see the growth happening. And the investment is kind of the word that you have to keep thinking about is this the right investment?
So if we go to page 21, capital replacement reserve. I really just sat down with Dave, our public works director, and we kind of planned out some replacement schedule for a lot of his stuff is truck related. His fleet is relatively old, I would say really old. So we need to start replacing some trucks, like every city. On the, I think we talked about the WatchGuard server this year. That's something that'll be before you, hopefully maybe next week, but if not, the very first week of August, because we need to make a decision on that. And I won't go into detail with that. We can do that at a regular meeting. But really, that's about all we have left for 2022. As long as we get all our stuff on order. The big thing for 2023, of course, is like Chief mentioned, we try to replace a police car every year. It's been going good for the last 5 years. So that's still on the schedule. Water and sewer main cleaning truck, $200,000. It might be a little less than that, but I'm a little scared of the truck market. Zero turn mower, you're going to have always probably need a zero turn every year for public works. I know we contract out a lot of mowing, but there's some mowing that we just have to do. And then down at admin, we're still monitoring our usage of, we converted an old, for forever, we've converted old police cars into admin vehicles. And we're trying to, as we add another director and starting to meet our city engineer, leaving more, we just want to make sure that if we need to pull a trigger on a new admin vehicle, we can. So that's what that's in there for, as well as police cars are very uncomfortable to drive. If you've ever driven one, they're pretty rough. So a non-police officer guy like myself would, it might be nice to get a passenger car or they didn't make passenger car anymore, passenger SUV maybe. But so not much in the equipment replacement, but a big purchase for Public Works with their water sewer cleaning truck, and like I said, we'll discuss that in reports as we go through the year. If there's no questions, let's plow forward.
I do have a question
yeah.
on equipment replacement, especially vehicles. I was talking with Randy White, Mayor of Derby, here in the last couple of weeks. I see him quite often, but he said they were looking at leasing vehicles. They're saying it's actually their analysis showing that it's saving them money. I don't know if you've looked at that or what your thoughts on those are.
That's a long discussion. I had a couple meetings with Enterprise Fleet Lease. Valley just went to them this year, experienced some good luck. Here's the gist of it. Everybody that is just an F-150, you get a new truck every year, and they can buy it so cheap and sell it so high. They just kind of turn them every year. And then some of the F-550s and the police officers would be on a 5-year lease. And then they'd get all new cars every 5 years. The fact that they can buy so low and sell so high on the yearly purchases actually generates income back to the city to help pay for the lease. Leases all the other. So it's a very interesting, and a lot of cities are doing it. I've looked at it. I've saw the analysis. I presented it to Ty and to Chief and Dave. It's a big leap because you're selling all your assets and you're leasing everything. I kind of said, let me keep thinking about it, and we can discuss it out here. It's just I'm kind of old school in that the less you care for something, I just anyway. Chief and Dave and I were kind of on the same page of it's kind of hard to say, oh, you can do whatever you want because we get a new one next year, or that kind of thing. But financially, it makes sense. It's an interesting program.
And I only want to do something, look at something like that if it makes sense, because I know years ago I was talking with a guy who's in the car business, and he said that he considered fleecing, because for consumers, that it was not a smart move. But in business and city and government, maybe it makes more sense. I don't know. And I'm not saying that it's a solution. It was just an idea he threw out at me that I said, well, I don't know if we've ever thought about it. So
yeah, the best part is we're always going to be buying trucks. So
right.
Does it matter if we have a good truck at a 2006 in there? I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide. It's a real policy decision to me. The money is there. I mean, it really does reduce your cost because they're really good at resale. We can put ours on Purple Wave and get a little bit of money, but we can buy it cheap and they can sell it high. So it seems to work. It's just it's a shift in philosophy. I would say that from financing equipment.
Is there more than one vendor that does that?
I don't know.
Or do you take on some risk from a vendor perspective?
Everybody's enterprise that I know. Truthfully, I would kind of want to see Valet as a guinea pig right now, and I want to see them get through
I
that
heard that
year.
comment
and then,
earlier.
I think it is enterprise. I think that's what he was telling me.
You certainly wouldn't want to make that policy shift and then shift back, because buying cars now is ridiculous. It's to have to rebuy a whole new fleet would be really intimidating
yeah,
for a government. One question I did have, though, and you said we'd talk about it later. Do we just own a single water and sewer main cleaning truck currently?
currently we
Just
do
one?
trailers. And
Okay.
I think
I'm just curious. The
um,
truck
it's basically
the vac truck.
two back. Yeah,
Yeah, the vac
I
trailer.
think we're looking at a back truck that can do a better job.
Gotcha.
All right. So I'm not trying to rush or rush the meeting along, although it is getting late.
I know.
I'm
I
kind
got
of curious to how much more we have to cover.
Let's do water
What you're
sewer,
thinking.
and then everything else is pretty much
Okay.
we could probably do in August. Water, if we get water and sewer done, everything else is pretty in and out. Page 23. Revenues on water. It's been, as you know, building permits are up. With every building permit, you have a tap fee. So you'll see in line 6, I'm projecting almost 400,000 in tap fees collected. That it's a good thing to have, but it is a one-time revenue. So that's something to keep in mind when we're starting to expend things. The hard part, and I can't stress this enough, it's really hard to evaluate utilities with other cities. Our city's customer makeup is almost, our top 10 customers are all irrigation lines. It's been a very wet year. So even with a 2% or 3% increase, if people use less water every year or this year, it's going to do the same amount of revenues. And that's what we're seeing right now because there's just not a lot of sprinkling. So that's why we have a 50% reserves in our utilities. And that's what PEC suggests. So because of our customer makeup. Now, if we can recruit a huge business that uses a ton of water, that's going to be good. The steps we're taking with CCUA are good. But that's an important thing to understand about our utility is it's very residential driven, and that creates some challenges. So really, all we have, another thing we really don't have, all we have is selling water. Some cities actually have water wells that they sell back. We give all ours to CCUA, so that's another revenue source that we don't have that we rely a lot on our billing. Line 14, I did add the utility clerk, and it pretty much is both the utility clerk and the equipment operator takes the place of our city engineer. So you don't see a large increase in the personnel salaries line because that's mainly due to us removing the city engineer. On the line 24, that's pretty much all our liability or contractual services. The rural water district, we are in agreement with them to give the buy rural water land. That this is left over from all our purchase of land. So we'll continue that, and hopefully in the next 5 or 10 years, we don't know yet, we'll update that. That'll be over with. The three big lines are line 30, 31, and 32. We purchased water from Wichita at a take or pay level. That's about $616,000 for FY 2023. We also are members of CCUA, which debt service is about $600,000, and then the water treatment is at $512,000, and that's at a 50-50 split on the 2023 budget. I hope we reach a conclusion with that and take less than 50%, but I would plan on the worst and expect something else. Page 24, if there's no questions. Line 16 is our water system repair and maintenance. That's where we fund all our new water meters that we're replacing. That has grown considerably, and that's mainly to make room for all the growth we have, purchasing all the equipment it is to set a meter. I did run a quick, how much tap fees we charge versus how much it costs to run a meter, and we're still doing pretty well. It's about $3,200 for a tap, and then we spend about, I think it was $1,500 or so. But something we'll look at with the fee schedule is, can we cover the cost plus some on that water tap fee? Line 21, system improvements. In 2022, you'll see we didn't do anything in 2021, so we doubled it in 2022, which Dave is working on. It goes back to the $300,000, and this is repairing water mains, replacing water mains, Danbury, Hanover, and Lawn Terrace. All said and done, we'll end the year with about 53% in reserves. When we did a water study, they requested 50% reserves. So that's just a little bit over our reserve limit. But as we do things with CCUA, I think it's important to have a little bit of dry gunpowder. If there's no questions on water, we'll go sewer fund, page 25, and a lot of similarities in the sewer fund and the water fund. The sewer revenues, again, pretty much $2.4 million, $2.5 million, and then the taps, I share that with water and sewer equally. Salaries actually went down in sewer and sewer. This is mainly due to the split. I split employees, but we did add the equipment operator inside of sewer as well.
You mean hiring a new equipment operator?
I added the new equipment operator, and it still was negative because we moved it. So what I do is shift, or I get about the same amount of expense for members of our public works in each fund, and it just worked out. It was $16,000 over in water, a little under in sewer. So. On line 25 and 26, or I'm sorry, 24 and 25, you'll see the sewer treatment, about $562,000. That's taken straight from CCUA budget. And then line 25 would be our debt. If we were to expand the sewer plant, that line would be hit with even more until we could retire that $739,000 in debt a year. Same thing with water, sewer, wastewater system repair and maintenance, $300,000. That's shared costs to set the meter because our water meters actually dictate our sewer rate. So it makes sense to share that cost with both utilities. Some big things that we are doing, and I'm watching pretty closely. We're going to add another lift station over here in Webb. So I didn't quite jack up the lift station operation repairs, because I don't think nothing's going to happen in the year one. Of course not, right? But that's always something to look out for is mops. But we are going to add a pump grinder in 2023, as well as some SCADA upgrades. SCADA system is basically notifies our public works if there's a problem, and a lot of different aspects of our water and sewer utilities. Line 2 on page 26, same thing, 600,000 in 2022, but back down to 300,000 in 23. I think it's important to always improve our system, no matter where we're at. I think it's important, and because a lot of these cities we talk about every year are really struggling. They're going to be in big trouble if they don't do this. So we always try to do some of that. And again, what I did on the ending balance reserves, and I know Mayor Madaj kind of requested we set aside some money for that sewer improvement if we need to. It's a little hard to do to make it make sense, so I put it on a note. So of that 2.2 million in reserves, about a little under $1 million would be for the CCUA sewer expansion plant. Projections was at 700,000, I think. So that'd cover a year or two, year and a half, if we had to go on and expand the water, and that would give us time to adjust rates or do whatever we needed to do.
On page 25, line 25.
Yep.
Sewer debt, when does that pay out?
Should know this off the top of my head. 2027, I believe.
Soon then, okay.
I thought I saw something earlier in the packet that said 2034.
There we go. 2034 would be, no, that's land. Sorry, it's not 27. I'll have to get back to you, John.
Okay.
I did a lot of reports on that. I can't remember.
That may be
Figured you
scaled.
might know off the top
What
of
was
your
that?
head.
That may be staggered too, because
Yeah.
there were several, and Jennifer probably knows it. better.
Yeah.
Well, it's also going up every year here, so there must be something rolling in that we're paying.
Yeah, I mean, it'll stick around. It'll stick around that amount, but yeah, it won't go. I don't think it'll go higher than 750,000.
So we expand it, and it'll go up.
It'll go up.
It'll
Yeah.
like triple or something.
Double or triple.
Do my staff's going to ask tomorrow. I mean, do we have any issues with adding staff members in the utility funds?
So you wanted 2 staff members?
No, one staff member, one equipment operator.
How many total staff increase? How many FTEs added does the budget as a whole add if everything
So-
gets adopted?
Since when? This year?
Yeah, if everything is
Nope, just-
Yep.
presented.
One
as in
police
the-
officer in general, one utility clerk in water, and one equipment operator, one in sewer. So 3 total out of 3 funds. Well, okay, let's do this right. A city engineer, a public works director. No, that wouldn't be it. Just 3. Just 3.
One question I had about the utility clerk,
Sure.
because I appreciate what you're saying, that you're very expensive to have you and the city treasurer issuing permits and doing things like that. And I appreciate you guys shifting, and it sounds like overtime is maxed out. Is there anything we could do short term during this period of growth that would keep us from adding another clerk, like temporary help, anything like that? Or is that just, that wouldn't make sense? You should just add a
Add.
clerk.
With all my heart.
Does it need to be a full-time person?
Yeah. It's that dire.
From my perspective, adding 3 staff people in one budget cycle makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I know we need to do some adding, but 3 feels like a lot. I don't know exactly
I want
where we shouldn't add. But 3 feels like a lot for a year. I'm just worried that, we've had some good years, and so we have some revenues, but a lot can change really quick. And I would hate to get to a point where, with the growth in salaries that we're planning, which we need to do, my first priority is making sure we take care of the employees that are here. and making sure they're compensated appropriately. Then you go add 3 additional people. If we have something change in the market, and sales tax revenue isn't as great, maybe property values even go down at some point in the future, do we get ourselves in a position where we're overextended and have to look at raising taxes or letting people go because we're, high on revenues? Growing too quickly from a staff perspective is a concern of mine.
I appreciate Chief Atterbury being here, and just my thought going into this. If like kind of what I asked you last month, like if you had to rank them, I think right now I can appreciate where we're headed, where we might need more police, but just in my head, that's the one. It sounds like utility and public works. I don't know how we get around that with the growth, and maybe police is where we wouldn't, but I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are.
So this 2022, we've only added one in the entire year. Is that correct? Or did we add more than one in staff people in the entire 2022 budget?
Yeah, we
cycle?
added a director of planning and zoning.
Plan.
That was the only position we added. And do we remember what we added in 2021?
We added a public works.
Public works
Added
employee.
Public works person. Okay. So we've been adding a little bit here and there, one and one. Okay. I'm kind of okay with these additions because I see all the other issues that are out there with the public works and the utilities and the police. But I don't want to make it a habit that every year we come back and look at another 3 and another 3. I mean, unless we just have super explosive growth that we just need to have that. But I'm kind of feeling that we're seeing a lot of growth right now. I'm feeling that maybe that's going to soften in the next year, 12, 24 months. Don't know that. I mean, that's a crystal ball that, who knows, but I'm just afraid that that's going to soften. So
I can certainly appreciate everybody's comments and Ted, for talking about your direct experience. If you had a crystal ball, my guess would say that 2 years ago, you would have hired probably some more people, knowing the storm that was coming. So that I can understand your position too, having to be in the battle and fight the fire. I guess I'd go to the total employee count of the city is what, 40, 41, 42?
Yep.
Somewhere in that range.
41.
So we're talking about adding a little less than 10% in one cycle. So it is a little bit scary to think about that, but I think we also need to appreciate that, over the last 3 or 4 years, we probably could have been adding 2 rather than 1. So there's some balance there, I think, of trying to predict the future and then trying to react to the reality. So I think, I don't think it's unreasonable to add a few more positions, considering the growth that you've been able to explain pretty clearly, I think, with the amount of work you guys have had. So I would actually be in favor of it. I think I would be more in favor of having Chief, which I do appreciate he was here too, help us line out a plan. He kind of said he would like to have 5, and that's going to probably happen over a multi-phase process. That would be the one I would probably look at and say, do we focus on building that plan for the next 3 years and then kind of consider that next year as a part of that plan that's more fleshed out. That's my thoughts on it.
Ted, were you here when we got rid of a bunch of staff because the city couldn't pay them? Do you know how many
No,
we
I
dropped?
was here.
You were here. How many did
Yeah.
we drop then?
There was probably 5 positions.
And so if we hire these 3, we're basically back to what we were in whatever year that was.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I'll be happy to argue that we need them all. And the reason is that we have been reactionary since that time, and rightfully so. We had all that debt, and because you're looking at it, you see it right there, and it baffles me when I walk by the front desk and I have this guy answering the phone and signing people up, because you'll say, why aren't we applying for grants? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing? And I say, Ted, can you handle that? Well, as soon as I get done signing up this person answering the phone, I might be able to get to that. And plus the other stuff that you want from me. So, that's what I see. And I'm thinking, I've got a finance director answering the phone. Why? And so I asked him, why is that? Well, I've got somebody out sick, and This one is busy doing this and that one. And when he says, I need some help, I can't argue with him to say, no, you don't. Just stay at the front desk. And so, and like he said, this $300,000 thing, part of it is, the customer service part. Do we want our citizens to be able to go and do all these great things on a program? That's part of what that does. Is it going to eliminate staff? No, because you're still going to have people like me who I want to talk to somebody. I'm moving to Bel Aire. Yeah, you can tell me to go to the website and do all this great stuff. I don't want to do that. And Justin's going to say, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to do it all online. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to see anybody. I'm going to say, I don't want to do anything online. I want to talk to a person. I want some help. And so we're always going to have that, that the different age groups, the different desires. So even though we have this great program that I can do everything and I don't have to see or talk to a person, I don't want to do that. And so I'm going to call Ted, who's sitting at the front desk, say, Ted, help me out. And he's going to say, okay, well, let me put this bond stuff aside that I'm working on and things like that. So even if we did get that program, I still think I would bet today that again, we talk about it's going to take us a year to get that bought and up and running and stuff, that person that we hire today, we're still going to need them, because it's not going to take the place of me calling in and then the people that need off on vacation and sick and things like that. So Ted still, even though maybe more people are handling it online, they're still going to be calling in. And if Ted's still sitting up there 2 years from now, or what scares me is that Ted says, I'm a finance director. What city can I go to that I don't have to sit at the front? And, or, someone else that's doing that. So I think that, we're, and you all have mentioned it, well, the chief today should be 5 up, not 5 years from now. If you're looking at those numbers, if we're going to compete with everybody else, he should have 5 more today. But he can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that. So we're reactionary. We're saying we handled this situation with pay. So he's full staff now. Let's look at over the next few years, adding people, because it's not just adding people. He said, we had 3 people, we got to bring a car on. So I think we need to be thinking down the line and saying, okay, we're way short today. Can we add some to this year that helps? Do we need to be thinking about next year? I think my thought is that these 3 have got to happen. And then maybe the next year we look at just 1 officer. And, if worst case, we don't grow as much as we think we are, we need them today. If we don't grow 1 person, we need these people today. But if this growth continues, or even half of what we're doing, then next year at this time, we're going to have 300 more customers or 500 more customers. If it's 300 new houses, average 4 per house, that's 1,200 more people. So that's my concern about, I see the need for every one of these. We probably should have added them before, so that we're not adding, I think the mayor said we probably should have been adding these every year. We didn't. And what I'm afraid of is we're at the breaking point where I'm going to start losing people, because they're going to say, I'm not putting up with this.
I support these people. And like I asked Chief, I don't know how we can bring people on sooner to alleviate the stress. And I think we can justify paying all these salaries by how much land we've sold. And it ties up some of that money that people keep yelling we want to spend on roads. But which is more important, resurfacing 53rd or keeping the staff high enough and providing police support and getting water mains fixed?
You keep all those balls in the air at the same time.
I'm not even going to try. I'll just drop the ones that say fix the road. I'll keep the other stuff in the air.
I think one of the things that you touched on, and I was kind of feeling the same way, was a discussion of salary and retention. And one of the things that comes into the retention discussion with employees that we do love the employees we have, is salary is one part. The other part is working environment. Your boss. Do you like your boss? Do you like your boss, Ted? I hope.
Yeah, he's all right.
But the other part is working environment. You touched on it earlier, and everybody in the city has a decision to make if they want to stay working at Bel Aire. And I think one thing we can do to show we appreciate them is raise their wages to at least maintain cost of living, and then the merit discussion and the bonuses we had earlier. The other one is to say, hey, we see you, we know what you're going through, and we're going to get you help. And so I think that it's fair to consider that and say, yeah, we don't want to lose good people, and this is partly a retention decision and also a efficiency decision. So I'm in support of that.
And I feel like we're efficient because when I look at, and Ted talks about it, you look at Valley Center. Valley Center's smaller than us. They got more people. And I'll guarantee you they don't have $1.1 million in land debt that they're paying. I don't know what they're doing. Their mill levy is the same as ours, or is it the same or more?
Hi.
Higher.
Who's counting?
Yeah, but who's counting?
They got
Their mill
schools.
levy is higher, but
There's no doubt our staff does an amazing job of operating in a constrained environment, and they have for a really long time. And so I know that that's true. I know we operate a very, very efficient city, and I really love that. And so that's when we start talking about adding staff, 10% of staff, I start to feel like we're losing that. And I think that that's something that, will help Bel Aire be competitive long-term, is really focusing on remaining a highly efficient city government, a limited city government that's really efficient. And so I want to have a lot of discussion anytime we're talking about adding staff to make sure we're not eroding that competitiveness that we have today.
And and that's the discussion we had with the planning and development director is, you're right. We want to be as efficient as we can, but we get to a point where we lose effectiveness. And when I've got my finance director, who's one of the highest paid here, sitting, helping people, we've lost our efficiency and effectiveness by doing that. And
You've convinced me that we need to hire Ted's employee. I'm not sure about the other two yet.
Wait till they break into your house, then you'll decide on the police officer.
well, that's all
Have
I
a good
need.
night, everybody. No, and oh, man, hit the nail right on the head with, I've heard several, the last 8 months been really tough for all departments, but if it wasn't for the people I work with, I wouldn't be here. I've heard that 2 or 3 times. So that's very important to us as well.
So with the police, so let me give you something to think about on the police side. Is the chief kind of mentioned it, and police is a little more difficult because it's emergency services. You need them when you need them, but how much do you want to support them until you need them? So what the chief was explaining to me today is, because I was asking him the question, I knew the questions you were going to ask, is because, so what are we going to get? Well, so he mentioned that there's shifts when he has one person. So there's specific calls where they need 2 people to go on. They won't just send one person. So he's got one person there. So they're going to wait for someone else to show up. So it could be, like he mentioned, county, Keachai, somebody like that. So it could take him 5 minutes for Keachai, an officer, to get over here to back him up. Could take him 20 minutes for a Sedgwick County officer to get here. So how does that impact you? Well, if someone calls and they have to wait 20 minutes and someone's shot or killed or whatever, and then you get the call from the media as, why does it take 20 minutes for an officer to get there? And that may never happen. Just like, with a fire department, they want to add $1 million truck. And they're like, why do we need $1 million truck? We don't need that truck. But there may be a time when you do. And then the building burns down. And then they're asking, why didn't you buy the truck? So that's kind of your, that's your policy decision is, okay, we think we're willing to take that risk that we'll just have one person on staff, understanding that if some call comes in and they have no backup, or they respond to, we've seen traffic stops turn into, deaths of officers. How long, so we got one officer, they pull somebody over, and there's a shootout and it takes how long to get some backup there. Again, that's not, I don't have to decide that, you do. How comfortable are you with it? That's where we're at is, are we concerned about the safety of our officers, and what do you want our response times to be? And that's your decision.
Ted, if we decide that this is the budget we want to go with, can you find enough money in this year's budget based on all the extra money we see coming in to go ahead and hire people? Because I don't want to have to wait till January to hire people.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
we really
the plan,
need
if I get approval, so as far as our staff, my staff goes, we do have, so we do have funds available to maybe the last quarter of this year hiring, but it's going to take us that long just to find
take a couple
somebody.
months to
The
find somebody.
problem is once this is approved, I was going to put it out, advertise it, because the market's tough right now. I mean, for the quality we need. And that's the problem too, is we don't just need someone to process payments. We need someone to explain a water bill, someone to also explain a permit. And, every one of my staff is dual, triple trained. It might get a little more specialized as you get older, or more, one more person, but that's the way it always is, and the way you can cover each other. So yeah, I'd post it right away and we'd hire them and make it available.
All right. Anything else we need to do tonight?
Go home.
I think you're good.
That's what I was ready for, but I wanted to check, make sure that
Really, all we
we
have
cut it
left
off.
is solid waste.
street fund.
The street maintenance fund might be the only one you guys really care about, or not care about, but it's controversial. On the stormwater fund, I literally just planned all the money to be spent, and then we'll judge it as it comes. It's pretty small fund, and then bonded interest, land bank, all it has is $5 million in it, and then that one special payment. That's about it. Okay. So it should be pretty easy in August. We also have the retreat. If you're all here, maybe we just finish it off there, or I don't know if we're televising it. So maybe we do an August workshop, finish it up, and answer any questions that you have on what we reviewed tonight. So.
Okay, well, been an interesting evening. I learned a lot of good stuff, and I think some things to think about for everybody.
Thank you, Ted, for your work
So
on the
thank you.
budget and for standing
Appreciate
for
it.
4 hours of our questions.
Right.
Got his work out.
Okay, so unless there's other things to talk about, I am going to say let's call
I
it a
had
night.
one quick topic.
What?
If we can, I'll throw out a thought. At our regular meetings, we're tending to cut them off at 10 o'clock because we're running out of time and it gets really late. And that's happened quite a few times now, I think, where we're running out of time. We should maybe consider starting those meetings at 6:30 so that we can hit all of our agenda items. I know we won't decide on that tonight, but I just wanted to throw that out as an idea for folks to think about.
I don't like that idea. I think we're here too long already. If we really need more time each month, I think we ought to have another meeting. And I know that sucks, but back to, we don't want to pay $50 extra a month.
I think, and tell me if I have this wrong, my gut tells me that we are just seeing a lot of items right now, but that will slow down. It's just, we're just seeing a lot of activity. Is that true, or is just my false impression?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll take,
It kind of depends. There's sometimes we're out a little earlier, and
Oh, yeah.
several of them.
we have had meetings
So-
only lasted less than an hour.
Yeah. So.
Not in quite a while. I think as long as we've got a lot of housing development going on, we're going to keep having long meetings.
Yeah.
I personally prefer longer meetings and less nights occupied in the month. That's better for me, and I think it's better for staff to have more evenings. But that's just my personal preference. So I knew we're not going to make a decision tonight, or even probably have a lengthy discussion. But I think it's something that we should all be thinking about.
Okay.
I agree with meeting the same amount of times for longer if needed. Longer
Well,
if needed. That's the key.
We have tried to move some things to the consent agenda and we've had limited success with that. I don't know how much more we could do and still.
I think it's worked. I mean, we had like 4 items last time on the consent agenda. That was
Well,
4
the
items we
interest-
didn't have to go through and
The
vote.
interesting thing about that
talk
though
about.
was that some of those were left over from the meeting before and we didn't talk about them. If they'd have been on the consent agenda the meeting before, we wouldn't have.
Like the appointments, we probably
Yeah.
could have done those on consent.
Can we do appointments on consent?
Well,
I
even
think-
some of those, the things for new development were not on the consent agenda one week and then they were the next meeting.
Well, there has been a lot of extra stuff too with new members, and hopefully we'll start hitting a groove too. I'm sure that'll help your council members.
One thing I was going to make a comment on is Tyler mentioned he's going to be gone next week, and I will be as well, but that's not going to affect because the other 3 are going to be here.
Well, hope so, because if
Hope
they're
so.
not, we don't have a
Maybe
quorum.
you don't have a quorum. That's why I was going to point it out. If anybody else is going to be,
Good luck, guys.
I'm going to try to Skype in, but I'm going to be in rural Colorado, so I'm not sure.
I will not Skype in. I'll be
I
on
was in rural
vacation.
Colorado, you can do it. Just get Elon Musk to turn on Skylink and you'll be fine. Okay, well, if anything else we need to chat about, council orientation on here about August 13th. And I assume everybody's planning for that. I think we're now targeting 9 o'clock. Is that true? Okay. Yeah. AM. Right. Okay. I'm going to call it an evening and have everybody have a good week, and we'll see those of you who are going to make it on Tuesday here.